Good morning, members, officers, visitors and members of the public. I'm Councillor Mike Baldock and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. The meeting will be recorded and proceedings will be conducted in accordance with the Council's constitution, including procedural rules which are available on the Council's website. Item 1, emergency evacuation procedure. There's no planned evacuation drill this evening, and accordingly, if the alarm sounds, it is to be treated as a genuine need to evacuate. There are emergency exits to my right and in front of the lifts. Please do not use the lifts. On exiting, you'll be directed to the assembly point, and it is important that you remain there and do not return to the building until I've announced that it is safe to do so. If anyone present will need assistance in evacuating, could you please inform me now so that we can make the necessary arrangements to assist you. Members must consider each application and everything that is said in the meeting concerning the application and make their decision based solely on the planning judgment of the information available to them. Following a decision by members, delegated authority is given to the planning officer to issue the decision notice. Planning permission is not granted or refused until the issue of that decision notice. Any member of the council who is not a member of a planning committee may attend as a visiting member and may speak having given prior notification. Such visiting members may of course include ward members, and whilst visiting members can speak on an application, they are not permitted to vote. Any member acting as a substitute on the planning committee must have undertaken appropriate training before doing so. Members must remain in the meeting for the whole time that each item is being debated and should not vote on that item unless they have done so. I'd now like to welcome our public speakers and remind you that you have 3 minutes to speak, and an audible warning of time will be given when there are 30 seconds remaining. If a meeting is deferred to conduct a site visit, you may speak both at this meeting and at the site meeting. We changed it to let them speak when they come back, haven't we? Yeah, we need to change that. And at the meeting when it comes back to the following planning committee. The meeting will follow the order set out in the agenda. However, I will amend the order if there is good reason to do so. In particular, I will take any items where a member of the public has registered to speak first before moving on to the remainder of the agenda, and I will verbally reorder the agenda as appropriate. Item 2, apologies for absence and substitutes.
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies for absence from Councillor Kieran Golding, who's substituted by Councillor Anne Kavanagh, Councillor James Hunt, who's substituted by Councillor Lloyd Bowen, and Councillor Julian Speed.
Okay, thank you. Item 3, to invite member declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests under the Localism Act 2011 and disclosable non-pecuniary interests under the Code of Conduct adopted by the Council. I'd just like to remind you that where it is possible that a fair-minded and informed observer, having considered the facts, would conclude that there is a real possibility a member might be predetermined or biased on any agenda item, the member should declare this possibility and then leave the room whilst that item is considered. Any declarations? Councillor Kavanagh.
Just to clarify, I'm here tonight as a substitute. I happen to be a ward member for 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3, but I'm here tonight as a committee member. I'm not predetermined and I will listen to the evidence tonight and then vote accordingly. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll declare I'm a member of Borden Parish Council but took no part in their deliberations on, I think, the 3 items that are on this agenda, and not predetermined. Okay, Part B, reports for the Planning Committee to decide. Item 4 is 2.1 23/505. Can we get that turned off? If it, can I kick him out if it kicks on? I suppose you can give him a warning. Okay, there's a member of the public is making noises. If that continues, we will have to remove you from the meeting because it is disturbing the electronic equipment. Okay. Over to the Planning Officer.
Thank you, Chairman. Just bear with me while I call up the presentation. Okay. Thank you. So this application is for a reserved matters application related to the Eastern Spine Road, which forms phase 2D of the wider Wises Lane development site. So the principle of development has been accepted by the grant of the hybrid application, and that included a condition that required an east-west spine road running through that wider development. Just like to note as well that since the agenda was published, we've had some further representations. None of them are raising anything new other than a member of the public saying the reference to this being the last section of the spine road is misleading because it's a dead end. But I'll cover that in the presentation, and it is covered in the report. Okay, so this is the location plan, so you can see it outlined in red. This is Wises Lane, a bit sensitive, to the west, with Borden Lane to the east. This is Auckland Drive, and then we've got Cryles Lane running around here. Just to show the context.
That's one different.
That's the same one, I think.
Okay, cut them out, chuck them out.
Just to show the context. I'll wait till it's gone.
Easily
It's going?
should be okay.
Okay, let's give it another go. Just to show the context of the proposal, the phase 2D in relation to the wider development phase. It's this section here running from Wises Lane to Borden Lane. And then we've got he's back. We've got an aerial image here. I didn't want to attempt to draw the red line on there because I didn't want it to be inaccurate, but you can see Platinum Way coming through here. The road will come through this section, through here, pass by over Cryles Lane, and then into this area here. This area, as you can see labelled, is the Borden Nature Reserve. There's an area here which is where the rugby pitches are to go, and the reserve matters have been approved for. And then you can see some construction activity, I think, which has progressed since this image from Google was taken. And again, just to assist members of the public and members of the committee, this is the proposed road, again in context of what will be coming forward in future phases of the Wises Lane development. So you can see no specific layouts because obviously these reserve matters need to come forward at a later date, but residential either side of the road with some open space as well. I mean, it will be clear that once this, the construction of the road starts to come forward, you will see it, obviously, but it will be screened once the residential proposals come forward at a later date. This is me piecing together 3 plans, so hopefully I've done it as well as I can. So this is a general context, general layout, sorry, of the road, and this is designed to meet the highway standards as required by KCC Highways as the Highways Authority. There are refuge areas where the public rights of way cross, it's off my screen there, just pull that down, cross the road. So there's 2 public rights of way, which was a concern of the public rights of way officer, but with the refuge areas, the crossing points, and with that, the details of that and signage to be conditioned, that reflects what is the same situation as the other end of the Spine Road in relation to the western spine point. There is a link here to the south which adjoins Cryles Lane, and then you'll see this extra bit here. This bit here doesn't adjoin the proposed Spine Road, but this bit here to the north of it does. There is a turning facility proposed here, and this is to account for anyone that either doesn't see or just ignores signage that will say that this is a dead end. So anyone that proceeds along here will then encounter the dead end, but will be able to turn and return back the way they came. There is some concern with the loss of trees, obviously, because the road does come into this green area here, and there's been a submission in relation to the trees, which has been reviewed by the council's tree officer. There will be some low-grade, low-category trees that do need to come out, and he is satisfied with the category of those trees and that they can come out. There is no mature woodland to come out. And in terms of the landscaping for the road, you can see the verge at the back edge of the footway here, and then another verge here. So you have grassed areas here and wildflower grass to the back edge, and then you can see trees located predominantly on the southern side but also on the northern side, and this reflects the rest of the Spine Road. So it's a continuation of what the central Spine Road section of the Spine Road will look like. And then there has been concerns, and as is raised by the comment, I refer to this as the last section in terms of the Spine Road, in that it's the last section that would be granted its final approval. The western section and the associated roundabout on Chestnut Street, the central section, the western one was approved as part of a separate reserve matters. The central one was approved as part of the detailed hybrid aspect of that application that was granted by the inspectorate, and that also, the hybrid also included the roundabout that is to go on Borden Lane, which is where this Spine Road will connect to. So I've just put that in there so that you can see, and then there's a more detailed drawing of that. That's the roundabout that was approved as part of the hybrid. So it doesn't just stop, and it also would not be open for members of the public or anyone to drive along whilst that roundabout isn't in place. So people will not be able to just scoot off the end of the road into the nature reserve and start driving around in there. And finally, one of the other important aspects that's sort of been of concern to many people is the ecological side of things, particularly in regard to badgers. You know, I think it's well known that there's badgers on this site, and as part of the hybrid planning permission, ecology was considered, and a number of conditions were included on that decision notice. So the planning permission secures a number of different ecological conditions, and some of those require updated surveys to be submitted. So that basically takes account of the fact that this is a really large development, and we know it's going to be phased and built out over a number of years. So circumstances can change on site, and so the conditions have been written to account for that. They are detailed in the report where the relevant ones have been discharged in relation to this particular phase. KCC Ecology have also reviewed the submitted information. They did require further details from the applicant, and that was submitted. And one of them is this construction zone plan, because they wanted to be satisfied that where the construction zone would be contained, because that may have an impact in terms of the badgers and the proximity of the badger sets. So following the submission of this information and the information submitted pursuant to, I think it's condition 59 of the hybrid, KCC Ecology are not raising an objection to this, and this plan is one of the ones listed as an approved document in the condition that's proposed for this. So on the basis of this, they're the main issues that I've covered, but everything's detailed in the report. We are recommending approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, can I ask Una Kerrigan to speak as the agent, please? You have 3 minutes and there'll be a 30-second warning. I think you know that.
Good evening, Chairman and members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight in support of the application, which seeks reserve matters consent for the Eastern Link Road for the development at land at Wises Lane, Borden. As members are aware, the site benefits from hybrid planning permission for a mixed-use development, including 675 homes, which also secures the delivery of a new link road running east to west through the site, connecting Borden Lane to the east with Chestnut Street to the west. The central section of the Spine Road was approved as part of the hybrid consent, and the western half of the road was approved last year. This reserve matters application seeks approval for the balance of the Spine Road to the east. The road will dovetail with the Borden Lane roundabout, which was approved under the hybrid consent and will be secured via Section 278 agreement. This part of the road therefore does not form part of the application, falling under a different approval process. Therefore, contrary to some comments on the application, the link road will be completed by this application. The proposals further include a connection to the south to connect with Cryles Lane. This is to facilitate the approved closure of Cryles Lane further east. To facilitate this, a turning area is proposed at the lane's eastern extent, where it will no longer be a through route, providing a place for turning for any vehicles that inadvertently progress beyond the no through route signage. This turning area borders phase 3 of the development, and so will not be in an isolated area and will be surveyed by homes, discouraging antisocial behaviour. The design of the road follows the arrangements that have already been approved on earlier phases of the road and has been subject to discussions with KCC Highways and KCC Public Rights of Way, both of whom raised no objections to the application. KCC Ecology raised no objections to the proposals and are content that there would be no adverse impact on protected species, including badgers, through the operational or construction phases of the road. A badger survey will be carried out again before works begin to ensure this remains valid, as already secured by the outline permission. KCC Drainage further raised no objection to the proposals, and a full detailed drainage design will be submitted pursuant to Condition 49 pre-commencement. The submitted plans identify a potential drainage strategy, however, this is indicative only. The principle of development has already been agreed, and the delivery of the road will direct traffic away from the A2, easing congestion between Sittingbourne and the A249. The design of the road is fully in accordance with the parameters set by the hybrid consent and is the last part of the road to come forward. The application has been subject to positive discussions with your officers and consultees. We therefore respectfully request that you endorse your officer's recommendation to approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I ask Lee Small? You'll get 3 minutes and there's a 30-second notice warning.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to ask that this application be rejected or deferred until the road connections are agreed and submitted as part of this application. The areas left by not connecting the new road up to Borden Lane and also the proposed turning area will, even if fenced in, provide a secluded area for antisocial behaviour. Borden Nature Reserve already has drug, fly tipping and other antisocial behaviour issues. This application in its current state will just add to the problems. With CCTV being installed at the nearby park and sports pavilion and the creation of a new rugby and social club, this will push antisocial behaviour towards the reserve and the empty voids left by this application. The application should be amended so that it's complete and joins the new Spine Road up, rather than this hybrid application that only benefits the developers at the detriment to the residents of Cryles Lane. This would allow the construction traffic to use the new Spine Road rather than Cryles Lane, which is a single track country lane and totally unsuitable for this kind of traffic. At present, the new road only needs to be opened before the occupation of the 421st dwelling. The last report to Borden Council stated that only 37 houses have so far been sold in just over a year. So at the current rate of sales, that's potentially 10 years before that condition kicks in. My second point is that Borden Wildlife Group have highlighted that the ecology survey is incorrect, and that both Swale Borough Council and Kent County Council are basing their decisions on inaccurate data. Therefore, the impact on the local wildlife cannot be accurately assessed and relied upon. If this application is passed, I would like to ask you that any conditions imposed should be able to be enforced. Unlike the Scarlet Mitigation Condition 60 of the Applegate Park and Wises Lane development, where after 2 years the landowner still hasn't provided the correct plots, and Swale Borough Council will not enforce it as they consider it's not in the public interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'll move the officer's recommendation. I think Councillor Booth actually got there first. Right, anybody wish to speak? Councillor Palmer.
I'm really looking for some clarification on something, because I'm looking at a letter from the Ecology Advice Service of KCC dated the 24th of April, and they're recommending an updated survey, and I believe the officer mentioned that there was something in a traffic thing, but I can't see it anywhere, either in the report, I can't see it linked to the background paper. Where is this survey, and has it been completed, and what does the survey actually say? Thank you.
Okay, Carly, can you give us an update on where the latest Badger survey is?
Well, it won't be available online because they're not allowed to, it's sensitive information, so we're not allowed to put it publicly online, but without looking at the letter and seeing the documents on our system, I'll just need to check in terms of the dates, but we have gone to and fro with KCC Ecology and the applicant to make sure we've got the most up-to-date Badger information. I've also got an update from the applicant in terms of what's most recently occurred in relation to the Eastern Spine Road. The latest surveys were undertaken on the 1st of November last year and the 23rd of January. Following reports that sets may have been missed during these surveys, they also obtained information from the East Kent Badger Group in July of this year, and these did not include any records for additional badger sets in the vicinity of the site and are in line with the survey results. So, I say, without looking at that, and it may well be in relation to condition 59 as well, that more recent information was submitted, because that has also been submitted under reference 24501-002 sub, which has been discharged, that the KCC have had sight of all of the most recent information.
But this committee hasn't.
Well, the information in terms of the location of badger sets cannot be made public.
No, but we normally have redacted ones.
All of the information that has been submitted is online. I would have to, I'd stop sharing and have a look, but.
Okay. Councillor Palmer, you want to come back?
Yeah, I'm concerned on that, because I feel if there's going to be expert information given, and I appreciate about the locations of the badger sets, but there might be an organisation who are far more expert in badgers who may counter that. And if they can't see it and it's not listed, particularly under section 100D of the Local Government Act, which says any relevant document used to determine a report should be open to the public domain. So I have some unease about this, because if their information is incorrect and another organisation who have professional expertise can counter that, they have no opportunity to. We're making a decision on information we can't see, which may have a detrimental effect to the badger sets, And I don't feel, until we see that information, I don't think we can make a decision tonight, and this item should be deferred. Thank you.
Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair. Can the officer put up the Baldwin Lane where the proposed Spine Road is going to be finishing at the end, at the eastern end, please? Baldwin Lane, please. Exactly the location.
Is it that one you want? Oh, sorry. I'm looking at it. I've got a different screen to you, just bear with me. Right. Yeah. Can I just also, while I'm looking for this, is just to say that the information in terms of the badgers has also been forwarded directly to the Bordon Wildlife Group, so they have had sight of it. But I'd need to look on our internal system as to when that was sent. But is it this one you wanted to look at in terms of the roundabout, or that one?
Where the proposed roundabout is on Baldwin Lane at the eastern end of the proposed Spine Road.
So it's here. I mean, if you look at it in the context of the Spine Road here, and then this section's here. Now you're asking me something technical.
That next door is Auckland Road.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I'll try and zoom in. Magnify. Is that sufficient? Yeah. This is Auckland's Drive here.
Right, that's Auckland's Drive.
Yeah, and then it comes out onto Bordon Lane here, and then that's the roundabout.
Right, because I know Baldwin Lane quite well. That's part of Baldwin Lane is quite a straight piece of road. Further up going south, there's a bend, isn't there, coming off Baldwin Lane? So it's going to be there, nowhere near that bend.
No.
It's down where the road is quite straight.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think as you go past it, then there's...
Can I remind members to go through the chair? Sorry. I have had to point this out a couple of times lately, so I'm only going to give you one warning this meeting. Carry on.
Okay. Now the other question is by the chair. If we're managed to pass this tonight, which route will the construction vehicles access the site? I take it this will be at the western end.
I believe. Sorry. Would you like me to?
Do we have that information?
I believe it's via Wises Lane, so they'll come down and then start that side and move along in an easterly direction.
So the member of the public made the point that if this was done done in conjunction with the roundabout, then they could use that rather than have to come up Wises Lane. Or are they able to come in through Chestnut Street yet?
Yes, they are.
Then why isn't it conditioned that they come through Chestnut Street rather than use Wises Lane?
We can put a condition on if that's what members want.
By the chair, yeah, that's going to be my next point. If we could have a condition put on that the construction vehicles come in from that end and don't use Wises Lane, because Wises Lane is totally, as we know, unacceptable for construction vehicles. So I propose that if we're minded to pass this tonight, that condition will be put on.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that condition? Councillor Clark. Everybody happy with that condition? Okay, that's agreed. Carry on, Councillor Winklis.
They were my two main points at this stage. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I was just going to come back briefly I can identify a badger, but I don't consider myself a badger expert. That's why this borough employs wildlife professionals, as do Kent County Council. Through you, Chairman, the planning training actually identifies that there are a number of species that cannot be identified with regards to where their habitat is or where they carry out their life, including badgers and rare species of birds. So I think we're on very thin ice, which I can also identify if we go for a deferment on that item, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a couple of points I just wanted to clarify. Looking at the major, or zooming out, there's no roads off of the Spine Road to serve the residential areas.
I'm just going to work out how to unzoom and there we go.
Why are we, I don't see, in the landscaping plan there is, but in the planning thing you've got there aren't any roads coming off. Can you just clarify that?
Yeah, so this is the Spine Road here, and then we've got these sections here that are coming through, and then so these will facilitate the future residential development. So they're highlighted a bit easier in the landscaping plan because it's got the colour on it, but they are also there, they just look slightly smaller.
And am I right in thinking that that residential outline has been agreed?
The outline has been approved, so the parameters of that outline is that there will be residential in that location. But
sorry, I meant detailed.
Yeah, the specific layout and then the scale of it hasn't been approved. So that would be future reserve matters. I'll just skip back to the phasing plan. And so these are labelled as phases 3 and 4 coming forward at a later date. So 4A, 4C, 4B, 3A and B. So they will then be submitted at a later date, and I presume will be coming to committee for decision at such time.
But isn't the fact that this is going through with those joining roads predetermining or limiting the ability of this council or this committee to judge the layout? It's kind of predetermining where the roads are going to go?
To a certain extent, the applicants would have modelled where they want to put that residential development because they need to ensure that the road can be accommodated and the amount of development that they have permission for can also be accommodated within the site. So I would imagine that they, whilst we've not privy to that information, that has been looked at and considered, and if for any reason that it didn't fit in with those proposals, then they would have to come in for an adjustment, and in which case that would probably be possible to deal with as a non-material or minor material amendment at that time. But I don't think it prejudices the potential consideration, and there's such large areas as well, so I don't think that causes issues at this time.
Okay, Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chair. As ward member, I've read widely, asked lots of questions, for instance, at the Wises Lane Monitoring Group. This was approved over 3 years ago, sadly, by the Secretary of State. It was approved. We've got to work out if this is the best possible format of it and agree to it, in my opinion. With the Badger survey, I understand that a Badger survey, that if it's more than 6 months old, it's not up to date. So as long as we have a survey within 6 months of them starting work in that area, that's the best we can do. And on to what Councillor Booth was alluding to, I'm not an expert on badgers. I'll leave that to KCC Ecology. That's what we have the experts here to do, the expert stuff and give us advice. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Winklis actually preempted one of the questions that I was going to ask reconstruction traffic. And I would like it sort of, if it could be put in the condition, although I'm not changing the condition at all, Chair, that any haulage firms that are working on site be informed of the direct route that they should take, rather than them sort of going up Baldon Lane, disturbing my residents, and then having to turn around and go all the way back down Baldon Lane again. So that's that, Chair. And I'm a little bit...
Well, hang on, let's just take that one. Are we all okay for that to be included within the condition? Can I have a seconder? Councillor Winklis, are we all okay with that? No? Councillor Booth? Okay, I'll take a vote then. Those in favour of that amendment, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Those against? 1. Thank you, Councillor Booth. Carry on, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. The second point I was going to make in question, with the Spine Road, obviously we can't do anything about it, stopping it coming onto Baldon Lane now, but I'm a little bit perturbed as to why we're looking at this application tonight. We've got no idea, unless I missed it, and if I did miss it in the report I apologise, as to when this roundabout onto Baldon Lane is going to be completed, because as other members have said, with the dead end coming up into the nature reserve, it does pose the fact that we could get all sorts of antisocial behaviour increasing in that area, and also we might be leaving ourselves open, unless somehow it's fenced off, to traveller encampments coming onto that site and hiding up in the nature reserve. So the first question is, when is the roundabout going to complete this Spine Road onto Baldon Lane? And the second question is, when can we expect the so-called junction improvements with these silly little roundabouts at the junctions of Adelaide Drive and Homewood Avenue? Thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure you'll have that information, but any insight?
No, I don't have all the timings of the silly little roundabouts, I'm sorry. In terms of the Spine Road itself, the reserve matters usually come forward in terms of timing when they're intending to start construction shortly in the next few months. I don't know when that will be, but there are conditions coming in and being discharged, applications coming in to discharge conditions for this particular phase. There is that trigger that the road cannot be opened until it's connected to the Baldon Lane, and as pointed out, that's quite a significant way into the development. But in terms of the security of it, this has been raised by the monitoring group with the applicant directly, because that's a real concern of the residents, and we were told at that meeting that it will be fully secured by fencing and, if necessary, security patrols along there, and that end would be shut off as well. So again, to hopefully deter the traveller encampments, that people have concerns with. Again, in terms of the antisocial behaviour that's already there, that is unfortunate, but it isn't part of the applicant's problem, and I don't see that this necessarily would increase that as an issue. If anything, with the construction activity on site, you've got more eyes in that area. I appreciate, obviously not at night, but there are more eyes on the ground, if you like, and natural surveillance whilst construction starts to move forward to that phase, as will be the case with the rugby club as well. So I don't have an answer in terms of the timings, but I would anticipate that they are starting to move that forward. They didn't hang about with the Western Link Road and the roundabout there. So I would imagine, in terms of the Spine Road, that would be, if it's approved tonight, in the next few months. But in terms of the other roundabouts, I don't know.
I think Mr. Gregory might have some answers.
Yeah, I've been sitting here trying to make myself useful. I've had a look at the outline consent as the discussion's been going on, and there's a number of conditions related to off-site highway works. Some of them are clearer than others without looking into the drawings that are referenced, but just to give you some of the headlines in terms of when parts of the development need to be completed and at what point. So condition 26 of the outline consent states that no more than 421 dwellings should be occupied within the development until the spine road between Wises Lane and Borden Lane and the roundabout connection to Borden Lane has been constructed to an adoptable standard and made available for public use. So the spine road and that roundabout is captured under that one condition. Sorry, this is going to take a few minutes due to the number of conditions. There's another condition which requires, which doesn't allow any more than 100 dwellings to be occupied until a Section 278 agreement is entered into for the delivery of a detailed scheme for signalisation at the junction of Wises Lane and London Road. And then there's some additional restrictions on that in terms of when that comes forward. But I don't think that was completely related to the comment. Then there is also conditions which require. Sorry, there's some extra works that were talked about. Adelaide Drive. So no more than 80 dwellings occupied until the following off-site highway works have been completed: works to Borden Lane, works to Wises Lane, and improvements for pedestrian crossing at the A2 Adelaide Drive junction. No more than 421 units occupied until the off-site highway works to Homewood Avenue, Borden Lane, Adelaide Drive have been completed. So I think that's probably the one that you were referring to. So I think they're both the points that you were making about the roundabout onto Homewood Avenue and the spine road itself is both 421 dwellings. So no more occupation than that before they have to deliver it.
So potentially a while. Councillor Clark.
Yes, thank you, Chair, for allowing me to come back through you. Can one of the officers give us some idea as to the number of dwellings that have been built and occupied to date? What was the other question I was going to ask?
I think the speaker told us it was about 30.
Yeah, and could we, through you, Chair, if it's possible, we've got Ms Kerrigan coming up again on the next application. Could we ask the question through you as to when, if she has any information as to when the roundabout might be constructed from the Spine Road onto Borden Lane?
I'm not sure we can ask, but she will have heard you and may choose to volunteer that information. Councillor Thompson.
Sorry, yeah, I missed the beginning. So the Western Link's completed. Sorry, I wasn't there because I was a bit late.
No.
It's not? Oh, okay. And when is that completed?
When the roundabout connects that onto Chestnut Street.
Oh, okay.
So it's nearly completed, but the roundabout doesn't look like it's very far done yet.
Oh, okay. So is there a condition that the Western Link's finish first, so then they can access everything else on site from there?
I think it's the other way. The Western Link, you say?
Yeah, as in onto Chestnut Street.
The Western Link has to be provided for, I think it's after 180 houses. Carla?
There is a trigger, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Oh, right, it just seems a strange way round. Otherwise, all the traffic has to go through Sittingbourne altogether, whereas if it comes from Chestnut Street, it doesn't, does it? I just thought it'd be the other way round, but I don't know the area that one.
That was.
But we don't engage directly.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. And there was just another little point, Chair, is I haven't seen the ecology report, but are there little wildlife underpasses in 3 separate zones?
Are there any wildlife underpasses?
There aren't any wildlife underpasses in the road, no.
Okay. Thanks.
Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair. Just another quick question. I thought there was a high pressure gas main run through that parcel of land there somewhere. I'm asking the question, obviously, have the necessary searches been done? Correct me one way or the other.
Carly?
The answer is I don't know, but that would have had to have been, I wasn't here when the outline was considered in the hybrid, but that would have had to have been picked up at that point. And if there was issues around high pressure gas pipes and therefore the requirement to consult with the HSC, that would have been done at that point. And again, if there's any issues with that, then there's a zone that you can't build within around that, and so the master plan would have had to have altered as a result of that. So it would have been considered an outline is my response.
Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify on this badger thing. I'll go on, Councillor Palmer.
Sorry, I was going to ask the same one because just through you, the officer mentioned that there was a report that had been shared with the wildlife group. I just wondered when that report shared, because they need a reasonable time to respond. And I hear what Councillor Booth says about experts, but there's experts for the prosecution and there's experts for the defence. And what we're not hearing, we're hearing one side being told, well, there's an expert who said this, but if there's a wildlife group expert who has a different opinion and hasn't had sufficient time to see that report and to counter it, then we put ourselves at risk of a judicial review. And the case law is quite clear that if reports are not published in accordance with the Local Government Act, then if they are challenged, the courts are likely to overturn any approval anyway. Thank you.
I have to say, I am concerned that we are being asked to make a decision without sight of all the appropriate reports. I can understand it not going on a public portal, but as a committee, if there have been issues raised. There have been issues raised about whether or not the sites have been correctly identified. One way of reassuring ourselves would be to have a site visit and we can see on the ground where the construction is, and we could ask for an ecology or local wildlife experts to indicate where the badger sets are, and we can make a judgment.
Is that a proposal?
Yeah, that's a proposal if you want.
Second that if you like, Chair.
Okay. Does anyone want to talk to the site visit? Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Can you be specific on the reasons you've just stated for the site visit?
I haven't voted. It was suggested so that we are in a position to see where the construction areas are and where any alleged threats are, so that we can judge for ourselves whether or not it's appropriate.
I think you would be, through you, Chairman, I think you'd be legally prohibited from identifying badger sets. Point blank.
No, I think on site we could, but anyway, anyone else wish to speak on that? Okay, sorry, Councillor Thompson, did you want to speak on that?
No, well, it was about the point that you made. I think it would be good for me because I think there's some north, some south, so therefore there's going to be a division of migration, so I'm not.
Okay, those in favour of the site visit, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is lost. So we'll go to the...
Could I come in there, Chair, because I've had my hand up for quite some time now.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm the solicitor. My name is Sven Radke. Just a number of points which arose in the discussion, perhaps I could clarify. The first of which is the matter relating to the badger survey. All I can say in respect of that is that there is a duty on the council to consult various specialist bodies, such as the Highway Authority, and in this case, various wildlife expert bodies. That has been done, and therefore the duty placed upon the council has been satisfied. Were there any objections or were there any relevant points to be raised for the purposes of discussion today, they would have brought them to the attention of the committee. But from what I can tell, there are none which are of relevance. The report is also sensitive. Perhaps if the planning officer can at some point identify why it's sensitive, that would certainly assist. Turning to the point about the antisocial behavior at the end of the road, that is not a material consideration because antisocial behavior is something which is anticipated. There is no evidence to suggest that it will happen. And in any event, there is separate legislative regime, antisocial behavior acts, etc., which would cover it. So for that reason, it is not a material consideration. I did also hear one member saying that he came in late. Could that member please clarify at what point he came in? Because if that member did not...
Yes, we are aware he will not be allowed to vote. Thank you.
Yes, that's all. That's all I was going to say. I'm glad you had that on board in any event, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer.
As we have the legal officer here, perhaps he could give his opinion on not citing expert advice, not being published on the portal, and if it was delivered late to an expert who might counter it, how does that affect under Section 100D of the Local Government Act 1972? Thank you.
Yes,
Did you hear that, Surinder? Sorry, Surinder?
Sorry.
Did you hear that?
I did hear it, yes.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, the Local Government Act demands that any report which is going to be considered for material purposes is identified and listed. That is not in itself, if there's an omission in that respect, that is not in itself a grounds for judicial review. It is a statutory requirement. In this case, what we have is a situation where a report was compiled or a survey was compiled, sent off to the relevant consultee, and therefore we can only assume that it was considered. It is akin to the number of reports which are sent to expert bodies such as highway authorities. Not every single report sent to a highway authority is going to be listed, or you would have a very long list. So the legislation has to be interpreted reasonably, and in this case, I don't think there is a requirement to defer, or there is any necessity to defer, as long as the body has been consulted. And I think it's been made clear by the planning officer that that has happened.
I can just say that the date that the Borden Wildlife Group was informed, I'm told, was the 31st of May. Okay, can I just go on to the 5.3 in the report regarding process of temporary diversions and closures of public rights of way. There has been there's quite a regular occurrence now that diversions are, quite ridiculous diversions are agreed by KCC, which cause a lot of problem for local residents, not just in this application, but in a number of others. Are we able to condition that any alternative, the diverted route, be made available before the existing route is closed? Are we able to do that?
I don't think we can, because it's covered by the legislation in terms of the Highways Act and the public rights of way. So that's for KCC to deal with. We can put an informative on a decision notice.
Yeah, if that's all we can do. I just get really fed up of these ridiculous diversions that don't help anyone. Okay, anybody? Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of apologies if this comes as a daft question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. On the map where you say about the road that leads to a dead end, out of interest, I get that during the construction phase, by the sounds of it, that's going to be blocked off. It's not going to be available for people to use. What about afterwards? How is that dead end actually going to be a dead end? Is it going to have a brick wall? Is it just going to be a cycle bollard to block people off? Because if there's any sort of potential gap, that ain't going to be a dead end, and people will look to make their way through. So I'm just interested on how that actually is.
Do you mean the dead end that is going to lead onto a roundabout onto Borden Lane?
No, there's one that was come off of these. I think it was on one of the spur roads, came down and onto an existing road. You said there was a dead end.
Quails Lane.
Yes, thank you.
How does that work out in the long term, Carly?
Just bear with me, I'm trying to share the screen again. I think I might have opened it several times. So is it this dead end you're talking about here?
Through your cheek, yes, I think it was. Yeah, and you said it connects up to a road, and they can go down the road. They'll go so far and then stop. What will be that stop?
Right, so that's Quails Lane at the moment. So what would be the stop, Carly?
I'm not sure. I can't read that tiny bit of writing. If any of my colleagues can open that. Well, actually, let me try and zoom in again.
Turning area provided.
Concrete. It appears to be some kind of bollarding across there, but I'm not entirely sure. But again, that is something that we could condition if we needed the details of that to ensure that motorbikes, etc., can't access via that route.
Given that this is a fundamental part of some people's concerns, shouldn't we know what we're agreeing to before we give planning permission? Carly?
Yeah, if I could read that slightly, I'll try and zoom in more, but no. Ultimately, though, if it's not entirely clear or we're not satisfied that it stops motorbikes, I think that would be there's measures that can be put in place to stop vehicles, but it's not unheard of to condition that type of thing and defer those details for later, because there is a solution to that potential problem.
Okay, Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Carly, for that. I agree. I think it's one task to actually be able to stop cars and larger vehicles going through, but it will soon cause problems if we should also be looking, if possible, to block off the rat runs for motorbikes, etc., because I think they're actually probably even worse, in my opinion. So I think if there's going to be a blockage, it should be a complete blockage, with possibly the exception maybe for pedestrians. My only other question, and again, apologies if this may sound a bit daft, there was comments made about the ecological survey and there was data missing. What data do we know of people saying was missing, or does that relate to the badger sets? Or is that something different? I'm just interested in that. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's because the last survey that's on the portal was November last year, and there was said to be another one more recent, but that's not on the portal. We haven't had access to it. As I said, it was sent to the Borden Wildlife Group on the 31st of May, but we haven't seen it. That's why I proposed a site visit, because we could see on the ground how close it was and whether or not it was of concern. Councillor Bowen?
Thank you, Chairman. So from that, I presume, but coming back to the discussion earlier, have the experts seen that? And there was a point made about which side of the fence you sit on, no pun intended. Officers are neutral in this. It's not they feel one way or the other. Actually, they're meant to give the neutral opinion. So, Councillor Booth mentioned, I think, as well. I would bear that in mind. But as long as officers, the professional, neutral people, have seen it, I'm certainly not qualified to make that sort of judgment. Thank you.
Carly, have you seen it, and do you feel expert enough to have judged whether or not it was accurate?
Myself, as the case officer, and KCC Ecology are Switzerland in this situation. We are neutral. So you have opinions from the developer side and opinions from the public and the Board and Wildlife Group that may differ. So we take out, I'm not an expert ecologist, so I couldn't give an expert opinion, so I get my advice from KCC Ecology to make that judgment in the round. So yes, case officers at Swale Borough Council and KCC ecologists are neutral, and they have seen it, as has the Board and Wildlife Group.
Councillor Palmer.
But in one of the late submissions, which you mentioned earlier, I think it was the 5th of August, it does mention that they're not allowed access to assess it. So, yes, you might have a survey that is done and approved, but if someone can't access the land to do a counter survey and to counter the arguments, it still doesn't, it's not an equal footing, is it? And we're supposed to make a balanced decision. It would be nice if the applicant actually worked with the Board and Wildlife Group and did a joint survey, and they could come across with common things, but it doesn't seem to be happening. So I think, you know, I accept what the officer's saying, but if it's only the survey that's done by the developer's expert, has KCC been out and done the assessment, or have they taken it at face value and said, well, nobody else has put a counter argument in because they can't, because they're not allowed access to their land to carry that on? So it's fine. We've got a choice of a car, any colour, providing it's black. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I'm not convinced by the ecological side. It separates, it's in a green boundary to basically open countryside, really, and it's going to suddenly slice 4 green spaces. There's definitely going to want to be migration from those green spaces. So we've already had the issue before behind Pine Lodge Care Home with isolating a badger set. This is going to be other problems as well. So we need to, you know, look at that. I'm not convinced, basically. If there's no wildlife crossovers, yeah, I don't think it's appropriate. Not for a modern system anyway. Something in Europe would have given wildlife crossovers of a road of that nature.
Carly.
I was just going to say that KCC Ecology also referenced East Kent Badger Group evidence when they were looking at the submission, so they also went elsewhere, and that's why then the applicant have then gone also to look at that, to approach them and ask to look at their evidence to make sure that they hadn't missed evidence of badgers within their own report, but it is seen to be in line with what the East Kent Badger Group are saying as well. So that's just an additional piece of information. There's another group that's involved that also should be neutral or on the side of badgers. So.
Okay, if there's no further questions, those in favour of the officer's report, please show. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those against? Sorry, Councillor Thompson, you can't vote. 1, 2, 3. That's carried. Okay, we move to item 2.2, 23,500,856/Rem, land at Wises Lane, Borden. Can we have the officer up? Oh, hang on. I've got to say, apparently I called this in. So, I have to say, I'm not actually sure why, Carly. But I'm not predetermined on it. What did I call it in, Carly?
I think because of the amount of concerns that have been expressed regarding recreational activity and the impact on the skylight mitigation.
That sounds very likely, yes.
I'm just going to open, it's me again, sorry, I'm just opening the presentation. Unfortunately, you've got me for 3 applications tonight, so just bear with the IT skills. Okay? Okay, thank you, Chair. So this application is for reserved matters again for the wider Wises Lane development. This time we're on the other side of Wises Lane, and we are looking at Phase F and what's called the primary school land. Again, the principle's already been accepted by the grant of the hybrid planning application. 2 letters have been received since the agenda was published, one from the EA and one from the Swell Footpath Group, saying they've got nothing further to add. So this is the development site here, outlined in red. You can see School Lane, and I have to say it's incorrectly referred to in paragraph 1.1 of the report as Chestnut Street, but it's actually goes to School Lane to the east there, to the west there, sorry, and then up to Wises Lane to the east here, and then you can see the development to the north and fields to the south. So I've drawn this line on, so it's probably not as accurate as it should be, but it gives an indication of where the site is. Things have developed ahead of what's shown there on that aerial photo. This has been taken from Google, but it just gives you an idea of what the site looks like at the moment. So the fields to the south, the construction to the north. Okay, so it's not moving forward. For some reason the slide isn't moving forward, so just bear with me. I'm going to stop sharing and try again. Apologies. Right. There we go. Again, this is just to show the context within the wider site. So I've used a different plan here to the phasing one because we recently had a non-material amendment just to change the shape of this land, which is the school land, and then we have open space, which is all this green bit here. They're the areas that this application is covering, and it's basically an application for earthworks to level out the site. It won't be entirely flat when it's finished, but it's cutting and filling to provide a more level surface, just to make the area a bit more user-friendly in terms of recreational activity, and that's a multitude of activities. There's been some concern about the area being used for pitches. There will be no marked pitches on this area of Greenland. You can see the buffer there, which is the existing hedgerow, is to be retained, as is the public right-of-way that runs through there and then comes through here. So yeah, this is the cut and fill. The purple bit is the areas of cut, and the beige and the orange is the areas of fill. So
sorry, Carly. Sorry, I don't think that public right-of-way is being retained there. Is it?
Yeah.
It's going around the edge. That's why we had to have that material amendment.
It's here. This is it along the hedgerow here, running through there.
That's the current one, isn't it?
That's to be retained as part of this application. This public right of way is to be retained.
Carry on, sorry.
No worries. So yes, given the nature of the works being, to do with the earthworks, and as it currently stands, there's a significant drop sort of towards the south. So this is why there's more fill to the south and the more cut to the north. It's going to result in similar levels to this surrounding development site. There will be no additional soil brought onto the site or taken off, so it's all moved around the site. and there is a soil management condition attached to the original hybrid, so that ensures that it's all fit for purpose. In terms of the impact on trees in the hedgerow, as I say, that's to be retained, and no trees are to be removed. So the tree officer has reviewed that and is satisfied that is acceptable, and with the conditions on the existing hybrid, that covers details to be submitted pursuant to any impact on trees. So it covers up tree protection measures, for example. Concern has been raised, particularly as I mentioned earlier, with the impact on skylarks. So this is the skylark mitigation land to the south here. So it's immediately adjacent to this site, and there's a landscape buffer included in this in this phase. KCC Ecology, as mentioned before with the other application, as always has reviewed the application and are satisfied that there won't be any harmful impact in terms of skylark mitigation. I know there's been comments from members of the public that it hasn't been provided or in accordance with what was secured. In terms of that, my colleagues from the investigations team have assured me they've been out on site and it has been implemented. So that's what I've been told. It's been secured by the legal agreement, and the mitigation, the management plan is also secured. So in terms of the wider ecological interest, again, conditions are included on the hybrid that deals with the ecological interest and requires those updated surveys every time a phase comes forward. So within 6 months, again, surveys for badgers, etc., will need to be agreed. And as it is set out in the report, the relevant conditions are also contained in there, with details of what the reference numbers are, where they've been submitted and discharged. So again, the updated badger survey has been included on this one, and that's included in the report. So overall, it's considered in the wider landscape there won't be an adverse impact. It's satisfied KCC and officers in terms of ecology, and in every other aspect as set out in the report, we are happy to recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Owen Kerrigan to come down and speak on this one?
Can I quick? Given the comments on the last one about the roundabout, could we extend a few more seconds if the speaker would like to address that?
I think I'll allow that, yes. You have 3 minutes, but I will be generous.
Good evening, Chairman and members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application, which seeks reserve matters consent for levels and earthworks to establish the development area for the primary school land and area of open space known as Phase 2F. Phase 2F is to provide a dedicated open space and recreation area, and the school land provides space for a two-form entry primary school. The location of these is established in the outline consent. There is an existing significant levels change on this part of the site, with the land sloping steadily towards the south. To tie the levels in with the remainder of the development area and achieve suitable gradients to achieve a developable and usable area for the school and allow for future recreational uses, the levels across the combined area need to be reprofiled. The detailed design for these two phases is not sought as part of this reserve matters, and consent is simply sought for the proposed levels and earthworks changes. The detailed design and arrangement of the school, including the design, function and arrangement of the open space, will be subject to separate consultation and reserve matter applications. The earthworks are simply being undertaken now to establish the development platform and ready the land for the future delivery of the open space in primary school. The proposed works do not predetermine the future design and layout of these spaces. During the application, comments were raised by residents in the parish that the proposal sought sports pitches on the open space. Previous iterations of the plans did indicate the potential location for sports pitches, however this was indicative only and they are not proposed as part of this application. This information was simply shown to illustrate the works did not preclude pitches in the future. Further comments were received regarding the proximity of the proposals to the skylight mitigation land. The proposals would not impact the skylight mitigation land and would not interfere with the requirements of the approved mitigation strategy. This application relates to a completely separate parcel of land, and a buffer of 15 metres will separate the future open space from the skylight mitigation. The proposals accord with the outline plans, which establish the location of the open space and school land. The application simply seeks to approve the earthworks and levels changes to allow for this future use. The detailed design for these future phases has not been agreed and will be subject to future reserve matters applications. The public right-of-way is retained on its current alignment. There are no outstanding objections from consultees, with no objections raised by KCC Ecology, KCC Highways, KCC Public Rights of Way and KCC Drainage. Your officers have recommended this application for approval, and we therefore respectfully request that you endorse your officer's recommendation to approve the application. All off-site highways works to do with the development will be delivered in accordance with the outline consent. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. I'm not sure from the notes I've got. Lee Small, are you speaking on this one? No. In that case, I'll move the officer's recommendation. Secondly, Councillor Booth. Does anyone wish to speak on this? Oh, crikey. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would like to have confidence that the contractors who are doing the earthworks on this application site are, shall we say, professional in their renderings of the landscape, and I'm sure that they will be very careful not to damage the hedgerow that is there. But I refer to land levels. Chairman, you will recall that we've recently gone through several meetings for another site that members will be aware of locally, where landscape levels were not as they should be, and I would just like some sort of assurance from our officers that they will keep an eye on the land levels as proposed, so that we're not sitting here in about a year's time with a minor amendment application because they've either lowered too much or raised too much the land levels across this site. Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring the officer in a minute, but as I have a similar question. My concern about this is the need for, I mean, I fully understand the need to landscape and level where the school's going, because you kind of want that straight and flat, but I struggle to see the need for all the upheaval in the rest of the land, which is going to be open space where people walk. I struggle to see why that needs to be level when you've already got natural undulations which aren't great but which already fit in with the area. They naturally, because they're already there, form a perfectly walkable, usable area, and there will be there's going to be increased disruption to residents whilst this landscaping goes on. And one of the things that we're told is need. I don't see the need for this. I don't see how this is going to improve the site. I don't see how it's going to make it a more appealing place to walk and recreate, if that's the word. So yeah, I'm fine about the school, but I just don't see the need to interfere with what is a natural levels at the moment. Carly?
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of your concern about the professionalism and making sure that they don't disrupt existing hedgerows, condition 44 of the hybrid permission, that's where I was referring to in terms of the tree officer being satisfied that those conditions require that the tree protection measures and also for hedgerows to make sure that they're in place before this works will take place. So that conditions should deal with that aspect. In terms of the need, I think where the applicant is coming from, it's more for provided it's not going to be totally flat, as I've said, but it just provides for a more gentle slope in certain areas across the site and allows for people that perhaps have a bit more mobility impairment to be able to use those areas, you know, including dog walking and just sort of hiking through or taking a stroll through that area. So it just allows for the opportunity for more people to use that space. But it's whether it's acceptable in planning terms, you know, whether it's needed or not. Does it cause harm? And from an officer point of view, it doesn't.
Okay, given that it's running along the line of a public footpath, which we said isn't going to be altered, how are they going to change the levels and leave the footpath unaltered? You're still going to... Basically, at the moment, you've got land that runs up to the footpath, and the footpath is effectively part of that land. Once you start sculpting... Is that a lake they're going to put in? Once you start sculpting, you get unnatural land. It'll be... Yeah, it's just flat. People who've dogs... Yeah, they'll go... There's parks if you want flat. If you want open space, you want something a bit natural, you want something a bit, you know, rough and ready. It's not going to be manicured lawns. It's going to be, you know, a place where you can walk. I struggle to see the need. And do we have to allow both bits? And if there's no problem with the school, can we not allow the school and not let this bit go through? I mean, I really think it's disruptive for no benefit.
I understand what you're saying, and it's in terms of the need, but from the planning point of view, this is what's being proposed, and does this cause harm, and is it contrary to policy? And in our opinion, as officers, it doesn't cause harm and it's not contrary to policy, so there is no reason to refuse it.
Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair. If we're minded to pass this tonight, I would like to also propose that we have a condition put on again that construction traffic comes in from the Chestnut Street end and not Crales Lane. If I have a seconder.
And we have a bit that Councillor Clark put on last time?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll second that. Everybody okay with that again? Councillor Booth? You okay with that one this time? No, right, okay. Any more, Councillor Winklis?
Sorry?
Have you any more? Have you finished?
I've finished now.
Okay. Councillor Thompson.
I just wondered then, I'm mindful of what you just said, the least disruption for wildlife, the better. It takes decades for it to settle and get back again. With that in mind, can we put a condition in that they create the wildlife buffer before they start landscaping, so all the planting's done all the way along the outer limit, so then wildlife's got somewhere to go, it's got a safe zone within that area? I think it'd just be, and it means it's well established by the time the actual site's finished.
Can we condition that, Carly?
We generally don't condition it to be provided beforehand, because where there's going to be level changes quite close to it, then it's not going to be mature in the same way that the existing hedgerow is. You're putting in perhaps potentially quite young species along there. The potential for damage and for them not to establish is, you know, it is quite great, and that would also take quite a while. So you could put a condition on it, but yeah, I'm not sure that it would actually take and be established without harm when you're doing the works.
Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, Chair. That's what we do, is planting, and we found that if you plant into a wild zone which has got better mycelium growth, it'll establish better than if it's virgin and been disrupted. So it'll just mean that they won't go as close to it when they're landscaping, because they don't need to landscape much along that edge looking at the undulations and things and the geography. It just means that there's least amount of disruption, and then there is actually left a little wild strip all the way along that edge, which I think will be very beneficial to wildlife. That's what we'd advocate. So.
You okay with that, Carly?
We can write something along those lines.
Okay, are we, I'll second that then. Are we agreed with that? Yeah, I think that's been agreed. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Martin.
If we look at this, it's actually a fairly sensible move. The reason for putting the additional side on the open space side may not necessarily be to make it easier for people to walk, but it does mean that you're not removing soil or adding soil from off-site. That's what it really does. And actually, by making sure that the levels for the school are prepped in advance, it should reduce any delay when it comes to the Reserved Matters application for the school itself and its subsequent construction. We've seen it on other sites where they wait and they do the earth moving works as part of that Reserved Matters. They then have to wait for that soil to settle before being able to start construction, which ends up delaying the delivery of vital infrastructure. So I think this one's fairly sensible. I do understand the concern around trying not to have virgin land and making sure that the wildlife has somewhere else to go, but this seems like an elegant solution to what would otherwise be increased vehicle movements, moving soil on and off the land.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have great concerns with disturbing the wildlife sides of the lines there to the left of the public footpath. I understand what Councillor Martin has just said about levelling sites and not having to remove stuff, but I share your concerns, Chair, that whilst yes we need to get the school site levelled, I'm afraid I think I'm going to have to either vote against or abstain on this agenda item, because I really do not see why we need to disturb what is basically nature's way of looking after things. And as Councillor Thompson said, it will take years for the ecological system to right itself after you've had massive great bulldozers tearing through there for days on end. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Braun.
I just wanted to say on the mobility issues, having ground as flat as possible is a huge help. You know, it's not something that's going to cause too many problems, and having it done, I don't see why not.
Thank you. Okay. Did you want to say something? No? Okay. There has been concerns about the levelling, so I'll propose that we. I can be told afterwards if we can't do this. I'm going to propose that we approve the application for the school and not the rest of it.
It's all or nothing.
So there you are. It's all or nothing. Councillor Jays.
In that case, Chair, isn't it worth a deferment and see if the applicants are willing to reconsider and only do the school site and withdraw the rest from the application?
Do we have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Clark.
Can I come in there, Chair?
Yeah, go on then.
The legal position is that you can grant or refuse the application as it stands. You can't segment it off, and you can either refuse it today, you can't defer it to enable another application to be put in for part of the site. That's not acceptable. You can either accept or refuse it, and if you do refuse it, it should be for material considerations and in accordance with the development plan, as you all know.
Thank you. Yeah, we have deferred these previously for such issues, so I'll take your point. Is there a seconder for deferral? Councillor Palmer. Okay, so the proposal is to defer to see if the applicants are willing to alter the application, and remove that bit. Yep, Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Again, I feel like the old wise owl sometimes. This committee has been advised by professionals, and it was very clearly stated. I urge that members take advice from the professional capacity and do not take it under their own steam to change the rules.
Thank you. You weren't here at the last meeting, were you, Councillor Booth, when we had a similar position? I have had it confirmed that we can actually defer on that basis, and that we have done before. And that's from one of the officers. You're wearing matching dresses tonight.
Looks like it, doesn't it?
So, Kerry, did you want to just confirm that?
Yeah, in terms of deferring items for revisions, it is something that we have done previously, and it is something that officers have gone away to reconsider.
Okay, so you've heard our professional. Anybody wish to speak to the deferral? Okay, those in favour of deferral, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's deferred. Thank you. Right, we'll now move on to 2.3, 23/502-210/full, land on either side of Vigo Lane and Wrens Road, Sittingbourne. I believe that's you, Carly.
Yes, I'm just closing down some of the other presentations to try and minimise the faffage. So hopefully I'll be able to share this one. There we go. Okay, so this one is an application for the construction of a solar farm, and along with its associated control building, substations, access and connection equipment. And we've had 2 letters again since the agenda was published, again from the Environment Agency and the Swale Footpath Group, to say they've nothing further to add. So this is the site here. You'll be able to see the red outline. We've got Ode Street here, Borden up here, Heart's Delight, Silver Street, Bredgar, Deans Hill, just to locate yourself. And then clearly running through here is the M2 motorway. This area to the south is the Kent Downs, previously AONB, now National Landscape. So again, this is an aerial photo that might help a bit more to understand the context. And I'll just pause on this one for a little bit, because you can see there that the site relates to agricultural fields. The report sets out the full assessment in relation to the impact on agricultural land and sets out the classification of that land. So I won't repeat it in detail here. But it's one of the main considerations in terms of the principle of the development. And so the temporary loss of the agricultural land for arable purposes has been considered, and that's been considered against the need for the proposal, which is against the government legislation, their objectives and priorities around delivering energy through renewables, as well as the council's own declared climate change emergency. As part of the application submissions, the applicant has gone through looking at alternatives and in terms of site selection, and has fully justified their reasoning behind why they've then settled on this site and why it's suitable. And in light of this submission in terms of the need, the alternatives, and considering the temporary loss of agricultural land, which can still be used for grazing purposes, officers have weighed in favour and considered it to be acceptable in principle. This is a block plan showing the full extent of the the panels, and we've got the compound down here, which includes the substation, and then there's the connection point here. This gives a bit of a closer image of and plan of the substation area and the storage cabinet, as well as the connection point. So you've got some overhead views, and then also in section. And then we have views of the panels in terms of the elevations and what they'll look like. It's pretty straightforward, as well as the storage cabinet elevations and substation elevations. This is the access arrangements to the site, which KCC Highways have reviewed, and also requested further details actually as part of the application process, and they are satisfied. What they was concerned about was that traffic could enter the site, particularly articulated vehicles, and then enter in and out of the site and be able to turn as well as pass within the site. So that detail was submitted, and KCC are satisfied that arrangement is acceptable, and also the level of generation of traffic is going to be higher during the construction period and less so in terms of the operational phase. They are satisfied that won't create unacceptable harm to the highway. I'm going to run through a few visuals because, again, that is one of the main considerations in terms of this application, given that this area here, so this plan, this little one in the side, shows the extent of the public right-of-way network and bridleways, and the blob, the yellow blob, shows you where this viewpoint was taken. Bearing in mind, this shaded area, there's the cursor, here is the formerly AONB, I'll refer to it as, rather than National Landscape, it's easier. It's not within the national landscape, but it is within the setting. So it is important that we do look at that. And further viewpoints were requested from the Public Right-of-Way Officer and the AONB unit. We had the LVA, with the Landscape Visual Assessment, reviewed by an independent consultant as well. The conclusion of that, and taking account overall of the comments, is that there's still concern from the Public Right-of-Way Officer and from the AONB National Landscape Unit, because inevitably there will be, you can see it, it's a solar farm, it's going to be visual, you will be able to see it. And the mitigation for that is landscaping, landscape screening. And again, that takes a while to establish. So, you're looking at a period of between the start date and then 15 years on before it's fully established. And some of the concerns expressed by the Public Right-of-Way Officer and the National Landscape Unit is that whilst the landscaping might screen it, it then has a change in terms of the character of that landscape and the feeling of openness. So that will be a harm as a consequence of this application, but it's important that we balance that harm in terms of the benefits, which is clearly set out in the report. Our landscape consultant that was independent that we employed to look at this felt that the site itself should be given a higher degree of sensitivity than was expressed in the LVA. So we've considered it against our independent consultant's advice rather than what was in the LVA. But he also pointed out that this needs to be considered against the backdrop of the fact that there's the M2 motorway and detracting features such as the pylons. So yeah, this is, I don't know how easy this will be for you to see, but this is the baseline at the corner of Vigo Lane, and then when you're looking at completion, sort of day one, if you like, of operational phase, you can just see the panels. So it's just like a darker grey area there, and then following the 15-year period, there's some landscaping that provides screening to it. So it's not hugely visible in the landscape when you view it from that point. This is from the intersection of the footpaths here, the 141 and 148. So again, this is the baseline, so that's before the development. And then you'll see this sort of grey strip here. So it will be seen upon completion. And then, yes, there's still bits that you can see, but largely screened with planting. Then we have this yellow point here. So this is from within the site, footpath 138, and so looking at it before the development. And this is probably the biggest change you'll see in these images that I'm showing you. So fencing here and then the solar panels, but then the planting and the screening that would be provided further down the line. And then importantly, one of the views from the national landscape, so up by, I think, near Dean's Hill. This is again the baseline, what you can see prior to development, and then looking at following the development. So very limited in terms of the impact there. But you know, these are viewpoints, so you have to take account that, you know, people will wander across in different areas of the landscape, so you know, you cannot fully screen a solar farm of that size. But in terms of the officer view, we've looked at it and we're taking account of the wider picture and the fact that the need for the solar panels and the renewable energies, and that it is temporary, albeit for 40 years. We consider that the public benefits outweigh the harm to the setting of the national landscape. This here is a screening plan that has been produced to deal with the concern that was raised by National Highways in relation to the impact of glint on users of the highway. So the M2, as I said, runs along here. Now there's been to and fro-in between the National Highways and I've been involved with meetings where we've sought to address the issue. National Highways have to take a very sort of hardline approach to considering these issues, because you know, if one driver is impacted by glint, it's potentially quite a serious situation. So the applicant has been required to produce quite a lot of assessment, and that includes sort of a 360-degree viewpoint of the driver, which clearly none of us can sort of turn our heads 360 degrees, let alone when we're driving along. But you know, the road safety aspect is a serious one. So the applicant has worked with National Highways to ensure that they are satisfied that there will be no adverse impact from glint. The National Highways actually employed their own specialist to review the submission and then the mitigation that was put forward by the applicant. And those measures are really in the form of screening here. So these are different heights of screening. But this is in combination with planting and mature planting areas. And then you'll see in terms of the next one, it says it's a temporary screening. That's because it's preferred that it's landscape screening rather than sort of hard, solid fencing. So it's a combination of mesh fencing and planting to address the issue, and that is secured by condition should you agree with the officer recommendation to approve it. And just to touch on ecology as well, it's, you know, it's a hot topic, and the sites these big, you know, inevitably there will be ecological interest on there. KCC Ecology again have reviewed the information that's been submitted. They are satisfied that provided there's conditions for a landscape ecological management plan and biodiversity method statements, which are included as conditions 8, 9 and 10, that will secure the mitigation that's required to not have an adverse impact on the ecology on the site. So with that in mind, and having considered all other aspects, with the planning balance set out in the report, officers considered the public benefits of the proposal outweigh the adverse harm, which is primarily in relation to the impact on the setting of the national landscape, and we are recommending the application for approval. Thank you.
Can I ask Mr. Mulvaney, please? You have 3 minutes and there'll be a 30-second warning.
Yes, so Chair and members of the Planning Committee, many thanks for providing this opportunity to speak to you about the new solar farm that we're proposing on land either side of Vigo Lane and Wrens Road in Sittingbourne. My name is Will Mulvaney. I'm a Technical Director and Chartered Town Planner with Wardell Armstrong, and I'm here with my client, who's the applicant. Your officers have provided a comprehensive overview of the planning application, and I therefore do not intend to outline the proposals in any detail. The applicant has worked diligently to bring together a deliverable scheme to provide over 40 megawatts of clean renewable energy to contribute towards Swales' climate change objectives. That's enough to power over 11,500 homes and offset over 8,000 tonnes of CO2 per year. The applicant has spent a great deal of time and thought in bringing the scheme in its current form before you. We've worked positively with your officers and thank them for their engagement and advice in this process. The scheme is brought before you with a recommendation for approval that's been the culmination of extensive engagement between your officers and the project team. We believe that we've addressed all matters to enable the Council to come to a positive decision. Many matters can be addressed by condition. Whilst we understand that landscape impact and impact on farmland are important issues for Swales, the planning process allows for a balance to be considered. It's our firm view that the important contribution that the solar farm will provide for Swale to go towards meeting the Council's own climate change and net zero objectives, alongside strong government support for renewables, far outweighs any harm. The landscape proposals provide for sufficient mitigation to limit the harm, including screening on site boundaries, the M2 and the Kent Downs National Landscape. And as the officer has outlined, we've done additional assessment in this regard. The proposals, more importantly, will provide a significant biodiversity net gain, something the Council have identified as a key objective. That equates to 190% net gain in habitat and 299% net gain in hedgerow biodiversity. Pardon me. The proposal presents an important opportunity to promote a scheme that will significantly contribute to the renewable energy supply and energy security for Swale and go towards meeting the 2030 target for the borough. The scheme is deliverable in that there's a willing landowner and a willing developer. The scheme provides an opportunity for farm diversification, which in turn enhances its future viability. The solar farm can be subject to grazing rights as part of the biodiversity management. The proposal is temporary for 40 years and reversible, and will enable preservation of the land for agriculture in the years following decommissioning. We therefore respectfully ask that you consider the proposals carefully and determine this application in line with your officer's recommendation and move to approve the planning application. Many thank you.
Thank you. Perfectly timed. Right, I will move the officer's recommendation. Councillor Jay seconding. You may. Sorry. Right, Councillor Thompson.
We've been, because I sit on the National Landscapes, and we've been struggling with a lot of these applications. And this one's a really good example of where, again, the most important factor's missed, and that's the quality of the land that's being offered. So that comes under very good. What used to be graded grade 1, and it just links into it. And we're losing most of our strip of grade 1 due to building because it runs along the A2. And for me as a farmer, that shouldn't even be put forward. It's only the fact that it's a willing farmer who doesn't want to farm anymore. They should sell that to someone who does. There's a lot of grade 3 along the Isle of Sheppey, Arwade, Kemsley, all along that area that will be flooded probably in the next 30, 40 years. Ideal landscape for solar, not on very good land that could be used for food production. And we really seriously need to think about security of food production. And we're skipping over it for short-term, basically profiteering, which is what this is. A landowner's come forward, want to make a few quid, don't want to work as hard. Solar farm, they're not thinking it through. That should be placed on grade 5 or grade 4 land that's probably already grazed. And therefore, and to also use the term about biodiversity gain, of course that's going to happen. It's a monoculture at the moment. But if you change the type of farming and you have much more diverse or organic farming, you'd instantly have a biodiversity gain and food. So for me, it's just insane to put solar farms on very good land. I struggle to find very good land, so I'm not impressed at all. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Councillor Vallis.
Thank you, Chair. The installation of a solar farm is most welcome. Investing in clean, green, renewable energy is the right way forward.
Oh, you almost sounded like you had that written down. Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I was basically going to say the same thing as what Councillor Vowles has said. Basically, it's national policy to have more green energy, and I feel as if we was to turn this down, we would lose. But there's one other point which I was very concerned about, but the officer did outline it, was the glare or glitz from it with the M2, which was a concern. If I understand correctly, that has been addressed with proper barriers, because that could cause quite a dangerous situation, because that was a concern of mine. But those concerns have basically I'm happy with. It's been sorted, so I will be going up this recommendation. Thank you.
Yeah. Carly, can you give us some clarity as to why this one was recommended and the one at Sawpit Lane in Robinsham was recommended for refusal? Seems that there's contradiction in recommendations.
I don't know the details of that salt pit, did you say it was? Yeah, I don't know the details of that one.
Okay, nobody else is looking like they want to offer up either. Can I just clarify? So it's going to take 15 years for the camouflage, whatever we call it, to fully mature, of a 40-year use. That seems a bit rubbish.
Yep, according to the documentation, it will take 15 years to fully establish. In terms of along the highway, there's specified mature planting there, but also because the requirements for it to establish, that's why the mesh fencing is there as well as an added screen. But yeah, overall the full establishment is 10 to 15 years.
Okay. Simon Clark, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. While I agree with the sentiments of my colleagues here about the need for clean, renewable energy, wrong place, wrong time. I'm very, very disappointed with the Highways Agency and with KCC Highways that they haven't raised more objections to this. Firstly, through you, Chair, could I ask Carly to indicate where the construction traffic entrance and exit would be?
Carly, can you do that?
Yep, it's going to come through here, but there is part of the condition for number 6 requires details of routing of construction and delivery vehicles to and from the site, but as I understand it, it's coming through here, and then the access.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Ode Street is a lovely little hamlet, and there are some beautiful buildings along there, and I'm worried how if there are any listed buildings there, how this is going to affect any possible impact on listed buildings, not least where the construction traffic is going through. Okay, it's not coming right through the village, but yeah, I can't get with the amount of construction vehicles that are going to be coming on and off site. It is going to be so disruptive to the people that actually live in those buildings around where the construction access is. It's going to have an impact on the public house and their trade. Now, whilst that might not be a planning consideration, I'm concerned about that. And no one said anything about the glint along, although they say they've looked at it all the way round. No, I couldn't see any mention of glint along Ode Street itself. That stretch of Ode Street coming from the east of the village, coming up towards the corner of Vigo Lane, there are some traffic calming measures coming through the village, but once you get to the outskirts of the village, that is a very, very fast piece of road. Even though it's very narrow in places, it's an exceptionally fast piece of road, and you're only going to want a low sun in the wrong place to blind someone coming along there when they're going like a bat out of hell, for there to be a serious collision or a serious single vehicle accident. I know we can't object to it on highways grounds, but those are my concerns, Chairman.
Hey, Carly?
I think it's not an issue so much. I think, is this the road you're referring to along here?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's predominantly because they're south-facing the panels.
Okay.
Sorry, through you, Chair.
Yep.
Yeah, there's still, when the sun's in the right direction, there could still possibly be, until the planting is grown up along the boundary of that, so it screens Ode Street, there still could be the possibility of glint coming off the edges of the panels themselves. So I would still be very concerned about the possibility of serious accidents on that piece of road.
Okay.
No, it's just the same. They're south-facing and they're tilted, so I think that's why it's not been raised as a concern.
Okay, Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chairman. I must admit I'm in an R on this one. Can't argue against the fact that in terms of the need for greener, cleaner energy. Absolutely get that. But on the counter side of that, within the report, I am concerned the KCC Public Rights of Way officer has and I'm not sure, it doesn't sound like there's been any solution to this. When they raise issue about the widths of the public right of way. Now, we all know within each of our own wards, when you've got public footpath, etc., that for people to enjoy them, they need to be a certain width at least. And my reading of that is, does that suggest they're going to be too narrow or not maintained? And that gives me concern. I'm not sure what they mean by the CCTV coverage, but that's for me a secondary one. But my concern there is with the widths of the public right of way. And then the concern also from the Kent Police about the fence patrols, where they said they are recommended to ensure regular fence patrols. Do we have any other information in terms of that? What they mean by regular, and who will foot the bill for it? Again, that's probably not actually a material planning consideration, but I am interested. And then we come on to the 7.4.7 Part A Policy DM24. I'm looking at point 4. The criteria is as follows: being appropriate to the economic, social and environmental well-being of the area, or being desirable for the understanding and enjoyment of the area. Given the public right-of-way concerns, I am not convinced at this point that we can tick the box so that it is in the social and environment, and coming back to the points made, this is great that was said grade 1 land, it's not ideal for this sort of purpose. But does that then appropriate to the economic grade 1 land questionable? Social and environmental well-being of the area? I don't know. I'm pretty much convinced that for those who are actually within this particular area itself, it certainly won't be beneficial for their own well-being. It may be beneficial for the well-being of the wider community, but this particular area, I'm not so sure. And for that, at the moment, I will listen to the rest of the conversation, but I'm seriously on the fence on this. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
I think the point here is, as Carly said, it's a balance. So there is the provision of solar farm energy, whatever you call it, against the harm to public rights of way, AONB, etc. And there isn't a right or wrong answer. It's which do you feel has the greater pull on each of us. So bit of pontificating there. One of the things that Councillor Bowen just said, we have to remember this Ode Street is a hamlet with it's got a craft centre and cafe. It has well, we used to call it a pub, it's Greek Caverna at the moment. This is quite an important walking area for people who, with a building in Wises Lane, a lot of the normal country walks that people take have been basically destroyed, and they're moving further out. This area is quite popular for walking because you can come from Borden to Bredgar, come from Ode Street. They are well-used public rights of way that are recreational and benefit the people visit an area and do pub walks. This features in a number of pub walk books. Not that I have that many, but quite a few. Where do we consider the impact on tourism and recreation in this one, Carly?
I haven't considered the impact in terms of tourism and recreation is considered in terms of the use of the public right of way, whoever they may be, whether that's local people or visitors to the area. But in terms of whether this development would detract tourists from coming to the area, that's not included in any of the policies, so I haven't considered that. But there may be users of the public right of way that are tourists, and so that aspect, just all users of public right of way have been considered. And as stated in my presentation and in the report, the public right of way officer and the AONB unit are not fully on board with the proposal, and it is, as Councillor Baldock said, a balancing exercise.
Councillor Palmer. Oh, sorry, Councillor Palmer. Councillor Bowen, you wanted to come back.
Thank you. Just very, very quickly on that last point. In your opinion, through you, Mr.
Through
Chair,
me.
through your chair, have we reached a point in terms of negotiation where this is it, or is there, do you think, any sort of wriggle room in terms of with the public rights of way and various others and the developer to actually address some of these concerns?
Carly, can we address these quite big concerns?
Well, the developer is well aware of what the concerns are, and they haven't amended their proposal. I think it affects viability. We haven't had a viability assessment submitted to demonstrate that, but I think that's the reasoning behind it. And you'll see in the report as well, there is requests for contributions from the public right of way officer, but they don't meet the tests, the planning tests, where we can require that because it doesn't arise out as a result of the development in terms of the wider network. In terms of officers' point of view, we've got to the point where we are comfortable with the recommendation, and we're just down for members to consider the balance and what their views are.
Councillor Palmer.
I'll try and be brief because I think everything's been covered. Councillor Boyne, I think, has hit the point on the nail on the head. I find it hard to make a decision on this one. But I think Councillor Thompson's made some good points. There are other suitable land. It's best and most versatile farmland. It's no good saying we've got a climate emergency, but what we're going to do is destroy our farmland. So I'm edging towards actually that the balance is that this will affect the amenity and the quality of the area, and the actual approving of it would outweigh, refusal of it would outweigh the benefits, in my view. Thank you.
Councillor Martin.
I'll paraphrase myself from previous applications on this sort of thing. Solar panels belong on rooftops, not beauty spots, but that's beyond the point. We'd all far rather see the solar panels being the solar farms over the top of car parks or on the top of buildings, not on agricultural land. Realistically, that's not what we're getting applications for. We're getting applications for them on quite a lot of farmland. I do recall one quite a while back on Abbey Farm in Faversham, which was objected to quite strongly on similar sorts of grounds. These days, people bizarrely go walking specifically to look at the solar panels. There are some sad people out there that like to do that. So, I think it's probably on balance where we need to go, as long as they're the more efficient ones, and ideally there needs to be some sort of storage for the energy in the medium term that is safe. Perhaps something along the sand batteries that the Norwegians are testing out at the moment that seem to be a viable alternative. Because if we're going to make use of this electricity, let's face it, it's being produced in the day when the sun's shining. When are we using most of our lecky?
Councillor Thompson.
Just wanted to point out some more things, that basically we import 60% of our food. So putting up a solar farm on another food production area means that we're going to exacerbate that issue, and we don't really need to be doing that. That's another point. The other one is on the Lower Medway Internal Drainage Board. We're always complaining about value for money. If we put that down on an area that's likely to flood in the future, which is probable, a lot of it's been highlighted, then it's perfect timing. Put that down on the grade 4 and 5 agricultural floodplains, and then in 40 years' time it becomes a floodplain anyway. It doesn't matter. What we've got to be so careful of is industrialising our landscape with things like this. Don't get me wrong, I'm very pro solar panels. I'm the same as Councillor Martin. It should be on roofs and car parks, and we should be pushing that for large open spaces whenever we do parking areas. But to put it on very high grade agricultural land is not the thing to be doing. Thank you.
Okay, with no other speakers, those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that is lost. Do I have any proposals? Councillor Palmer?
That the harm to the landscape character and visual amenity outweighs the benefit of the development of the application.
Okay, would you wish to add anything about the points raised by the Kent Public Rights of Way?
I think that would be a very sensible addition if someone can add to that. Yes, thank you.
Carly?
Can I just clarify, are you referring to the setting of the national landscape specifically? Okay. And in terms of the public right of way, what issue is that?
Concerns expressed around the omission of reference to some of the above prowl route, safety aspects of the site access during construction, location of a construction compound, CCTV coverage, width of paths, location of a substation, lighting towers, inadequate signage, and the extent and density of a solar array.
What paragraph number was that?
The safe use of the access during construction, the location of a construction compound, 5.12. How did you know I'd read it?
because I read their objection.
Okay, I'm going to propose that we defer for 15 minutes so that the wording can be discussed. And Councillor Bowen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just whether you want to add in terms of that under what was under 7.4.7, the DM24. So I'm not convinced that it brings appropriate to the economic, social and environmental well-being of the area.
Given that it's an interbalance issue, you'd have to look at the overall picture, so I think that's a valid addition. Carly?
I think we'd need more detail as to, specifically from the economic point of view. What's the harm?
I think, well, I would suggest that the harm is to the local tourist facilities and amenities. Would anybody else like to offer anything for Carly to consider in the deferral? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I think it got mentioned, but the furthering of the national landscapes, it actually goes against that due to its boundary, obviously via the M2, but it will have an effect, so we'll analyse that, but yeah.
And in the balance, not best use of Grade 1 agricultural land?
Can I just clarify in terms of the social aspect, are we talking about the public rights of way and the whips? Or
I was thinking of the deterrence to people actually using it as a recreational area.
Yep.
Yep, that's Councillor Bowen's point that I'm supporting. Okay, we'll come back at 25 past. Okay. Councillor Thompson, did you have something to add?
Yeah, it was only about the new wording of the national landscapes, which is furthering the national landscapes, which is quite a crucial point. And for us, it being the Garden of England, it isn't an industrial landscape, it's the Garden of England. So for it to be high-quality farmland, turn to that, can we put some sort of wording in around protection of furthering or of the AONB previously national landscapes because of tourists view Kent as an agricultural landscape. So that's all.
Thank you. Do we have a potential wording for...
If it's okay with you, Chair, I'll run through the aspects that I think some reasons for refusal can be, what it can include and what we can potentially defend. And if it's acceptable to you, I'd like to ask for delegated authority for you to agree the final wording of those reasons for refusal before we send out the decision notice.
Can I ask that Councillor Jays be included in that?
Certainly, yep. And in terms of what I've picked up from the discussion, we are looking at reasons for refusal around the impact on the setting, including the wording that Councillor Thompson's just referred to and specifying industrialisation. In terms of what Councillor Baldock read out in relation to the public right-of-way officer's comments, these aspects would be wrapped up in reasons impacting the setting of the national landscape. So we are looking at, in that regard, the extent and density of the solar array, the height of the tower, the lighting towers impacting the setting. And then we are also looking at including the impact in terms of amenity, particularly where the location of the construction compound is. Also, the impact on amenity in terms of, and the impact on the public rights of way in relation to the width of those footpaths, the location of the substation, changing that character. We are also looking at the impact on loss of recreation because of the widths of the footpaths and perhaps people not wanting to use them because of the feeling of enclosure and safety, and therefore also that will impact the tourist offer within the area. Also, we're looking at the access for the impact on the access and the safety of the public right-of-way route across that access during construction. And rather than the not best use of agricultural land, we would phrase that as loss of best and most versatile land. And I think that is everything.
Okay, so I'll move... Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As it's been read out and put this for consideration, in terms still with the public rights of way, I think there is also a question in terms of the accessibility for people with disabilities who may find it unacceptable in terms of their width or being actually able to use that particular area. So I think that there could be discrimination ground potentially for people with disabilities.
Can you consider that, Carly, for the final wording?
I'm not sure that we would want to put that in the final wording because the widths are sort of 7 metres wide. So I don't want to use the word discrimination because I don't think that's the case. It might deter people using it because of the width and the planting either side of it in some cases might create a feeling of enclosure, and therefore it's that loss of openness, and that's why people might not want to use it. So yeah, I don't think I don't think we'll be able to defend a reason including the word discrimination.
Okay, so I'll move that we delegate to officers the reasons, the final wording for the reasons for refusal to be agreed by myself and Councillor Jays. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Palmer. Those in favour, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those against? 1. Abstentions? 3. So that motion is carried. Okay, next item is 2.4. The Town Council have withdrawn their objection. So with the agreement of the committee, we'll take that off the agenda unless anybody wants to keep it on. It's like that's agreed to take it off. In that case, 2.5, 24/501/489/ADV, Parcel G, Harps Farm, Cecilway, Minster. And can the officer give us an update on this one, please?
Thank you, Chair, and evening, councillors. Just let me get the presentation up. This is an application for part of a larger residential development scheme at Harps Farm. This specifically relates to Parcel G, which is for overall 171 units, can be seen in the red outline there. The application is for the installation of some temporary advertisement signs for the development, which would be located within the blue area to the right of the site there. The actual site is in the description is noted on being on Thistle Hill Way, which is the address of the wider site, but the signs would actually front onto Scockles Way, which is the road that runs to the right of the site there. This aerial image to give you a little bit of context. Now, as you'll see from the images that will come up in a sec, that greener portion of land to the right of the site is also a development site, and there's been some objections from local residents with concerns over the cumulative impacts of the signs, with some signs that are already there, as well as over potential highway concerns, with the signs causing distractions for drivers. Now this is a site plan of that area, part of that area that's in blue. It's a little bit tricky to see, but the sorry, bear with me. The signs. Sorry, I'm just trying to fix my cursor here so you can see where I'm pointing to. Anyway, the pink rectangle that runs out onto Scockles Road is the main access to the sales area of the site. The two kind of diagonal lines either side of that are kind of totem board signs, and then there are 4 flags which come to the left of that access, which are in the landscape strip, and there's also a fascia sign on that unit that's highlighted in a dark outline that says Show Home Birch A. Oh, here we go. Sorry. This image here shows you the appearance of the signs. So those flag signs, you can see the actual banners are 1.8 meters by 0.8, but they would stand 5 meters in height. The two totem, as I advertise, the main site signs either side of this access. They measure 2 meters wide by 2.39 meters tall, and then the fascia sign, which would be set further back into the site, is 7.4 meters across that elevation, with a height of 1.23 meters. If I go through some of the images, so that is that fascia sign has already been put up, but it would be taken down because that's not the correct location for where it's shown on the plans. The applicant initially wanted 8 flag signs and additional fascia signs, but it's been reduced following request by officers. There's another image of the site that's under construction, so that would be where the entrance would be to the site. Another view looking south down Scockles Road. And this is further north of the site, looking down. So on the left-hand side there, you can see the existing signage for the residential development on the opposite side of the road. That's the development as it is at the moment. So as you can see, the advertisements would be very similar in terms of both their amount and their size and appearance. I should also note Highways have commented and said that because of the angle of the site of the signs, they'd be orientated 40 degrees to the highway, so they don't anticipate that there'd be any issues with highway safety because they'd be clear and present for drivers passing. So in all aspects, it's deemed acceptable and recommended for approval.
Thank you. Can I ask Rosie Dennis? Rosie Dennis is the agent. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Chairman and members. As set out by the officer, this application is seeking advertisement consent for the associated signage to serve the sales area related to the Reserve Matter site of Parcel G on the Jones Homes Sherland Park development. Parcel G is currently under construction and is located on the eastern side of the wider site, and Scockles Road runs along the eastern boundary. A non-material amendment application was approved in June 2024 to allow for the temporary use of the southeastern corner of Parcel G as a sales area, which includes allowance for temporary access from Scockles Road. The purpose of this application is therefore to seek consent for the installation of advertisements on the eastern boundary that will help direct visitors to the sales area and advertise the development. This includes 4 flags along the Scockles Road frontage, 2 totem signs at the site entrance, and a fascia sign on the side of one of the sales units. We received 2 comments against the application, whereby the parish referred to their concerns over the lack of a footpath on Scockles Road and the resulting impact of the signage on highway safety. Another concern was raised by a neighbouring occupier in relation to the level of signage up and around the site. We acknowledge the parish's concerns surrounding the absence of a footpath and highway safety, but would highlight that the layout of the site has been approved via the outline and subsequent Reserve Matters applications, and so not a matter of a consideration in this application. Both KCC Highways and the Council's environmental health officers have reviewed the scheme, and neither have raised any objections on the basis of safety. These points have been fully clarified in the officer report. With regards to the level of signage around the site, the signage on Scockles Road frontage is to be removed and replaced with that approved through this application. Other signage on and around this development site is fair and proportionate to the scale of this development. The applicant has worked with the council and, following concerns over the impact of the signage on the street scene, have reduced the number of flags from 8 to 4 to alleviate this issue. The case officer has provided a detailed assessment and confirmed that the scheme is acceptable in design terms. The officers visited the site and no further issues have been raised by officers or consultees in relation to either highway safety or pedestrian safety or visual impact that require further consideration. The advertisements will not result in long-term impact by the very nature of them being temporary. They will be removed either once the permission expires or when the sales area is no longer in use, whichever is the sooner. With this in mind, the proposal will help Jones Homes market the site for a residential development that has already been approved and supported by the council. We therefore request that you endorse your officer's recommendation and resolve to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Parish Councillor Tom Nundy, please? You have 3 minutes and you'll have a 30-second warning.
Thank you, Chair.
Minster-on-Sea Parish Council feel that this application raises significant safety concerns due to its location and the inherent dangers associated with this particular stretch of road. This section of Scockles Road does not have a footpath, and the location of the advertising is situated on a bend, which exacerbates any potential hazards. According to the Highways Act of 1980, local authorities have a duty to ensure the safety of all road users. Section 135A of the Act specifically addresses the temporary diversion of footpaths for dangerous works. While this is not a diversion of a footpath, as none currently exists, nor is it temporary, we feel that this legislation highlights the importance of mitigating risks in area where pedestrian access is compromised. In this case, the lack of a footpath means that pedestrians are forced to share the road with vehicles, which increases the likelihood of accidents. Furthermore, the placement of advertisements on a bend in the road can serve as a dangerous distraction for drivers. The Road Traffic Regulation Act of 1984 empowers local authorities to regulate traffic and ensure safety, which would include the control of advertisements that may pose a risk or distraction to drivers. The distraction caused by these advertisements could lead to reduced reaction times and an increased risk of collisions, particularly in an area already deemed hazardous due to its layout and lack of pedestrian infrastructure. Had the application included provisions for a footpath, our assessment might have been different, as this would have mitigated some of the risks associated with the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nundy. I will move the officer's recommendation. Oh, just as well somebody did. Okay, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. Wonder if the officer could tell us the flags on the poles, are they actually fixed in place, or are they able to be raised and lowered by pulley system?
Can you clarify that one, please?
Yep, sure. They would be fixed in place because my understanding that the flags would be supported by at the top and bottom, but there's been no indication that they could be moved down and put back up.
Councillor Clark, do you wish to come back?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, that does alleviate my my issue. I was just going to say, if they were to be raised and lowered via pulley system, but particularly on windy days and windy nights, the slapping of cables or ropes against the posts can be heard from a significant distance. But
Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. I think if we go anywhere in England and you see a large housing development, you are going to see flags and posters and billboards and God knows what else. Excuse me. I'm really buoyed up by the 40-degree angle. It nearly swayed it for me. However, I need to be consistent, Chairman, and probably along with you, I sat in this chamber and I spoke vehemently against this application originally. I cannot vote in favour of something associated with a proposal that I strongly objected to on grounds of being consistent, so I shall be objecting. Thank you.
Okay, I have to say, we have a similar situation in Wyses Lane that came to this committee a little while back, and it sticks in the craw when these unwanted developments go ahead and then just rub the faces of local people in it by putting an excessive amount of advertising up. We objected to the one in Wyses Lane because of the noise of the flags and the impact on the local community, and we lost an appeal. Councillor Thompson.
I just find it slightly ironic that we supposedly have a housing shortage, but we have to advertise like mad to sell them. It's a bit mad. But I just wondered if I could see Elm Hill, an image of Elm Hill, if that's possible, that meets Sockles Road, because I think it showed where they're placed, doesn't it? Oh, sorry, the actual photo. Okay, because what was interesting, there was hedge all the way along there, and now it's gone. Was that meant to be protected or not?
Are you able to clarify the
So-
damage?
So for this purpose, the removal of the hedge is identified in this plan here. That you can faintly see it, kind of that white hatched area at the front. That's already been approved as part of the reserve matters application, is my understanding. So
It's been approved that it be removed.
that's correct.
Oh.
Thompson, did you want to come back?
Yeah, it's only that it seems that most of the hedging's been removed for advertising. That was all. Just seems. I'm not keen on flags and advertising. Full stop. I think if you need something, people will find it. It's just a more plastic pollution, and that's my view anyway.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chair. My difficulty is if the other side of the road has a similar number, how can we refuse it? I mean, through work, I used to go up Scockles Road quite recently, and I've seen the flags the other side. I haven't found them a distraction. We've got to be seen to be fair. If one side of the road has a similar number, how can we refuse? Thank you.
Councillor Vallis.
Thank you, Chair. There's me thinking this is going to be a straightforward one, and here we go. It's purely for marketing purposes. There we go.
Councillor Jays.
Thank you, Chair. Where these are going is where I suggested at the outline application should be a footpath, but obviously members went against my suggestion. I'm really alarmed to hear that we've heard that there'll be a temporary access off of Scockles Road. This was neither consulted directly to the ward councillors or to the parish council. This is the first, I believe, the parish council or ward councillors have heard of this. I think these flags are vulgar, but like you say, go anywhere around the country, or someone has said, go anywhere around the country and we'll see these.
Councillor Martin.
I do concur with the general feeling in the room that no one particularly likes them, but we don't have much choice on it. It's what's required. Where I would like to go, and I doubt I'll even get the words that we could have a condition on it, but these flagpoles normally end up either left behind or in a skip at the end of the development. If we can request that the developer speak to local community groups such as sports clubs to see if they require the flagpoles at the end, so that they at least get reused to replace ones that may be a little out of date and a little rusty, that would be at least something towards the local community in the longer term.
Can we put an informative or condition to that effect?
Yeah, we can do something like that.
Are we all happy with that? Thank you. Yes, Mr. Gregory.
Thanks, sorry. I think we can put something onto that effect. What I don't think we could do as part of the condition is require them to actually do it, because it's going to be reliant on a third party outside of the applicant's control. So I think we could do something along the line of best endeavours to do what you're asking.
Thank you. In that case, those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 15, isn't it? Yep. Okay, that is passed. The next. Oh yeah, I don't think we're going to get everything done in the next 10 minutes, so I'll move that we suspend standing orders till 10:30. Do I have a seconder? All agreed? Jolly good. Then, thanks, Kerry. 2.6 24/500/823/full Jimmy G's Amusements. Can we have the officer report, please?
Again, thank you, Chair. So this application is for the essential reconsent of a kind of mini kind of children's fairground area at the rear of the Jimmy G's amusement arcade, which is located to the western side of the promenade in Laysdown. Apologies.
Shall we take the speakers and come back? There we go. All right, okay, so there's a location plan that shows the site. The large orange kind of rectangle in the middle is the amusement arcade itself, and the yellow area in the red outline to the rear is the kind of courtyard area to the rear, which is the subject of this application. There's an aerial image to give you a better idea of the area that this application relates to. To the east is obviously the promenade. To the west is the promenade car park, and then to the north are the residential development, residential properties, which have been. We've had a couple of complaints or objections from the residents that live along that road. And there's also been some enforcement complaints previously, which is one of which is resulted in this application being submitted. To give you an idea of the actual layout of the site, there's various small-scale kind of amusements in there. Includes a dodgem, trampoline area, mini wheels, merry-go-rounds, and like chair swings. I'll show you some images coming up. So this is the amusement arcade, the front that fronts onto the promenade. This is looking to the rear of the site from the car park. Another image showing the trampoline part. This is looking from the access to the car park to the south of the site. There's a mini Ferris wheel and the dodgems area. And this to the left there is a ride called Jumping. I think it's called Jumping Star now, which has received some complaints from neighbouring residents. Those those have resulted in that ride being fitted with pneumatic silencers, which is been reviewed by environmental health team, and they've, during their reviews of the site previously, they've concluded that in their sound tests that that's resolved any previous issues. Environmental health have been consulted. They haven't raised any objections. They've requested a number of conditions that are sought to increase our kind of control of the site. The complaints that have been received kind of relate to amplified noise and the playing of loud music outside of the permitted opening hours. Some of the additional conditions that we have this time round on this application, which is different to the controls that we previously had, was to require the applicant to install noise limiters to the amplifiers, as well as automated time controls to retain the silencers, and also to ensure that the permitted opening hours are aligned with what they previously had, which was 10 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock in the evening. Subject to compliance with those conditions, it's felt that that the scheme is acceptable, and it should be noted that the permission is temporary for a two-year period. So the recommendation is for approval. Thank you. Can you just clarify? It's for a temporary period of 2 years, retrospective. It would be 2 years from when the permission was given forward.
It would be 2 years from the date that this permission was granted.
Thank you. Can I ask Ward Councillor Tara now?
Thank you, Chairman. The residents of Seaview Mews have bedroom windows as little as 40 or 50 meters away from the fairground rides. When they moved in, there were caravans and fields behind the houses. Before the rides were installed, the fun fair consisted of little more than a swing set and a sand pit. In 2019, when the initial application for the rides were submitted, 7 residents submitted objections, all saying the same thing. The music in the ride jumping jacks was excessively loud. Now, only 2 submitted objections this time, not because the others were okay with the noise, but because they felt helpless. The application went ahead last time despite their objections. The conditions stated in the application and just now have not been adhered to. The rides may run until 8 or 9 in the evening, not 7 p.m. Not only is music being played at an intrusively loud volume, ride operators play offensive drill music. Residents have to put up with the N-word through their windows and in their gardens. The flashing sign behind the building is lit until 11 at night, shining directly into people's bedrooms. As for Jumping Star, Jumping Jack, pneumatic silencers were installed but not used all the time. There is video evidence, one from August 2022, clearly showing the ride operating without silencers, producing enough noise to drown out conversations. Gary Howells, in number 4, who is online, has observed that the silencers were only used for inspections. Thankfully, the ride has not been used since the initial application expired, but what assurance do the residents have that it won't start up again? Evidence shows no reason for the residents to have faith. These residents are not unreasonable. Their issues with the fairground were specific and clearly stated. The chair and vice chair of this committee made sure the application would be reviewed in 2 years because of these concerns. Conditions were set to address these issues, but not adhered to. There's video and photographic proof. So if attempts at enforcement haven't worked, what assurances do residents have that now will be any different? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I ask Mr. Godden, please? You'll have 3 minutes and a 30-second warning.
Good evening, Chairman and members. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our application. I'm Jeremy Godden, owner of Jimmy G's and Mr. G's Amusement Arcades in Laysdown. As many of you will be aware, Jimmy G's has operated as an amusement arcade since around the 1961. We have operated amusement juveniles in the rear space for 6 years now. During this period, we have had dialogues from our relatively new neighbours. But all of those direct concerns that have made their way to me have been mitigated through opening hours, controls and management of noise monitoring. We are in agreement with the proposed conditions, which support our aims of delivering fun to our guests. The site at Jimmy G's has been operated by only 3 different families, all of whom have operated a variety of attractions at the location. I took the liberty of speaking to the operator of the location from the 1980s and 90s this morning, who confirmed that he operated a large set of dodgems with large loudspeakers throughout this period, on top of 2 prize bingo rigs booming out bingo numbers from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m, sometimes till 1 in the morning, every day. In our application to continue the temporary use of our rear area as a small children's park, we have opening hours conditions and also can confirm we only open in the school holidays and weekends from Easter till the October half term. Further, I can confirm since our purchase of Jimmy G's in 2007, we have had security lighting up the rear area, both during its previous use as a staff car park and storage yard, and now as a small amusement park. The rear signage mentioned previously has been consented and has been the same for 20 years, save for the change of name. In the rear yard's previous use, my customers would use this area until at least closing time of the arcade, 11 p.m, to access the council car park 364 days a year. In its current use, the gates are locked at the closing time of the children's juveniles, and so the pedestrian noise is moved away from the residents of the new houses that have been there for 8 or 9 years. As I'm sure many of you are aware, we had applied and will be reapplying for a large-scale redevelopment of this rear area, when I have some more time after the school holidays, in order to enclose all of the interactions to further mitigate any disturbances to the residences located nearby. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to welcoming you to sunny Laysdown soon.
Thank you. I'll move the officer's recommendation. Okay, I'll just take that one. Councillor Jays, you've called this in. Can I just have your assurance that you're not predetermined on this?
I'm not predetermined and I wish to speak, Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I've called this application for two reasons. One, we, the committee, gave it a 2-year permission then, and for that to be extended, I think that should be a committee decision. And two, because the residents have requested I do so. The previous application was called in by the late Councillor Beard. Quoting from the minutes, Councillor Beard spoke on this application and said that residents have been dealing with this fairground for 2 years and there have been lots of complaints regarding the light and noise coming from the fair. End quote. We are no further on from this. Residents have consistently complained for 6 to 7 years now about this. At that meeting, members raised the following points, and this is in the previous meeting's minutes: concerns with how close the fairground was to neighbouring property, concerns that conditions that would be put in place would not be regularly checked, and asked how often did they get checked by enforcement, concern with the background music, it's very loud at all times of the year, could we not impose a noise restriction on the fairground, which is in the latest conditions, and the area was not suitable for a fairground. End quote. Rightly or wrongly, the council approved housing in this busy seaside tourism location, and as such we need to offer relevant protections to the occupants as per policy DM14. We need to keep the light and noise out the front of these buildings. This housing site, I understand, was previously a pub, so perhaps this would have been more appropriate then, but we have to live with the decisions that were made to put housing in. Officers have recently refused, as we just heard, an application for an extension out the back of this building. In that application, it had been refused for one of the following reasons: the proposal would cause harm to the living conditions of number 1 Grove Avenue. At the last meeting that this was heard in November 2021, we suggested sound barriers. That doesn't appear to happen. If approved, can we condition that? And this would also screen this mess from our car park. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there anything you should say? Don't have to.
In terms of the condition of sound barriers, that would be potentially require consultation back with environmental health, but mindful of the fact that they've already stipulated that they are content that the controls that they've sought through the conditions that are included within the recommendation would be sufficient. I'm not sure how warranted that would be. It would also potentially affect the overall appearance of the site, because obviously the barriers would need to be designed to their acoustic performance.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I note what the officer said with regards to the condition regarding noise limiters. I note on condition 4 where it says about amplified speakers to the main building, etc., and the times, it doesn't actually mention in there noise limiting devices which would cut sound should they go over the particular prescribed limit. So I would like to confirm with the officer that that is part of condition 4.
Can you confirm on that?
That's right. I believe it's mentioning condition 7, where we've required the applicant to come forward with details prior to this being officially brought back into use.
Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair. Is there any way the officer can show us how close these properties are to this site?
Do we have some sort of aerial view?
Yeah, I wanted to just see it visually.
Oh, apologies. So it's, the aerial view shows the best context, and then of the proximity of those properties to the site. Bear with me 2 seconds and I can get an estimation of the actual distance on that. You better have some really insightful comment after this, Councillor Winklis.
You can work on it while we're waiting. But that was probably about 1 o'clock last night. Or this morning.
If I can just come back, chair by the chair, my colleague seems to think it's about 40 metres, I think she said.
40 or 14?
40. Councillor Bowles.
Does that sound about right? Sorry, I didn't catch that. They think it's about 40 metres. From the northern boundary of the site, which is that's a storage area to the to the boundary of those residential properties, is 5.5 metres. To the houses themselves, it's about 20. Councillor Winklis.
Thanks for that. Just another clarification on the existing hours that this site is opened. I think was it 7 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the evening?
7 in the evening.
I thought it was 7 o'clock. Okay. Thanks for the information.
Okay. Can I ask when those properties were built in Seaview? Yeah, I don't have that information to hand, but whilst you're looking at that one, Councillor Thompson.
I've forgotten what I was going to say now because I got sidetracked with measuring things, but I'll have to come back. Hold on.
You are the last person to speak at the moment. Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. Just because it's a retrospective application isn't grounds for refusal. Not that I'm looking to refuse. Neither are enforcement matters, not reasons to refuse. This is a very buoyant seaside town with amusements and a very bustly lifestyle as we sit here tonight. The holiday season is in full flight. We've heard from Mr. Godden, and I'm respectful to him coming along this evening. He's operating a business which is in business to stay in business, so it needs to make money. And that's not a planning consideration again. I'm also very respectful for people that live near a noisy establishment or a deemed noisy establishment. Noise to some people isn't noise to other people. And it's like the adage, Chairman, please bear with me, the recent occupant that lived near Gatwick and said, I didn't realise it'd be so noisy. Be careful what you wish for. I think there are a whole raft of conditions on the application, as was and as potentially can be, to limit the noise. And I think the noise is the biggest issue. So that is a matter for this borough's enforcement, massive enforcement team to handle. And with, I would respectfully ask Mr. Godden to liaise very carefully with the planning officers to ensure that those conditions are met. And if they're not, Mr. Chairman, that the full weight of Swale Borough Council is put to task to deal with this matter. If that is the case, I've got no problem with going for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Did we find out when we...
I've got the answer.
Okay, Councillor Jones.
The decision was issued on the 4th of July 2013.
2030?
To build the houses, yes.
Yep. I've got 23rd of April 2013, but we're in the same. Yeah.
2013 then.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it does strike me that this, as Councillor Booth said, this has been a vibrant place of public entertainment for longer than 10 years. I think it at least dates back to the 50s. And I do have some concerns when existing enterprises are then curtailed by people who move into the area. It's not like Laysdown is a secret. People come from London to go there. It's quite loud, it's noisy. In fact, I don't understand why we have to turn everything off at 7 o'clock. If you watch American movies, these things go on all night. But Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I just wondered, Mr. Godden mentioned that they're going to enclose the site. Has that had a planning application? Did you say refused or not refused? Not.
I think that's yet to be put forward.
There's been one refused recently for a building over this site.
Yeah.
Where we are, it's been refused. I mean, one of the reasons was overbearing, and in terms of the relationship between the site and the houses. But obviously, the difference here is that there's no wall, there's no roof structure on the site as it is. So that was a different scenario we were looking at there.
Do you want to come back?
Yeah, it's only that with that point, I think Ms. Godden said it wasn't active, it was a car park until 6 years ago. I might have got that date wrong. So therefore it's a car park and now it's an amusement park. The people would have moved into those, and I think there is a need for defence of the housing. But if there's an application that could go through that encloses it and is acceptable to all, then that makes sense. But if it's just going to mean that that's never going to happen and it then ends up as a bigger and louder amusement park, which is hard to enforce upon, I don't know, it's just my points there, really.
Councillor Kavanagh.
For me, part of the charm of Laysdown is the noise. I don't live there. I think it's a very bizarre place to have built houses, but they're there. I mean, if you walk down that road from the bottom up towards the beach, you hear noise, music, people, what have you. I haven't heard the noise at the back of these amusements separately from what I've heard on the road. There's still going to be noise. It's just a very strange place to put, what is it, 7 houses, 12 houses. But, and yes, it's your business. It's not it's not like Thorpe Park. It's a little kids amusement thing, and take it away, you're still going to have noise. And as I think has been said before, different noise affects people different ways. Difficult.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with Councillor Booth and Councillor Kavanagh just spoke. Blaisdowne is it's a seaside resort. It brings a lot of income to the local economy. Other areas just would probably wish they had that sort of participation over the course of the year. But I do also get that if you live there, that in your resident you've got this noise going out, so that does get irritating. But none of this is, as Councillor Booth said, insurmountable and can be dealt with by effective enforcement, should that actually arise. I question, I just want to check, so the amusement park is due to 7, but is that the closing time for the whole building?
Can we
I think that's
clarify
later.
that? So the 7 o'clock would just be for the external amusement park.
Thank you. So through you, Mr. Chairman. So there's I don't know what proportion of noise would be from this particular amusement park, but there will certainly be noise generated from the rest of the building, but the slot machines, the arcade machines, the noise of the kids throwing the balls into the other arcades, and you've got an arcade, just looking at Google Maps, directly opposite the other side of the road, which would also generate noise, and also behind it the car park, which would also generate noise with the sound of cars revving. To say that it's unfair that just the cause of the amusement park, I don't think sits, or it's not. I don't think it's defendable, as we can enforce it and have enforcement officers, and it brings far more to the area than detracts, I think.
Councillor Vallis.
Thank you, Chair. So the hours between 10 to 7 is quite like reasonable hours. It's not unsociable hours like a nightclub for enforcement.
Okay. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those against? Abstentions? That's easily carried. Thank you. Right, the next one is 23-504-718/full, the Vicarage, 101 The Street, Bolton under Blean. And who's doing that one?
Chairman, may I?
Yes.
We've got 10 minutes left. Do you legitimately think we're going to get this done, or are you going to go for removing standing orders?
Okay, we've got 2 more applications, so I propose removing standing orders.
I'll second that.
Are we agreed? All right, those in favour, please show.
I guess.
Yeah, I'll better vote on this one as well. Those against? Right, we're carrying on. Well done. Well done, Councillor Booth. Officer.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Okay, first off, there's 2 updates in that. Number 1, the SAM payment has been paid. Secondly, on paragraph 7.32, in the last paragraph, the word no is missing. So it should read, the closest proposed dwelling would not extend beyond the rear of number 12 Arthur Kennedy Close, and as such there will be no unacceptable impacts in this regard.
Quite an important clarification, thank you.
That's why I wanted to make sure you were all aware. Okay. Turning to the presentation. The application site is located behind the Vicarage in Bolton under Blean, and it accesses onto Arthur Kennedy Close, which is to the side, which is a close comprising of bungalows. This is an aerial photograph with the site shown here. And here you have a plan of the site showing the proposed 2 new dwellings with the vicarage to the north and the car parking for the 2 properties at the front. Here's the elevations for the first plot. These are the elevations and floor plans of the second plot. And here is a proposed street scene showing the vicarage on the left, the 2 new dwellings, and number 12 Arthur Kennedy Close on the right hand side. Here's a side view showing the 2 properties with the vicarage at the rear, with the sites sloping downward from the main road. The following shows you the proposed landscaping that will take place on the site. And here we have the cycle store and bin store elevations and plans. Here is a photograph from the rear of the site showing the rear of the vicarage and some of the properties within the close. This is looking onto the close from the site, which, as you can see, is predominantly grassed. Excuse me. Here we have number 12 Arthur Kennedy Close. This picture was taken last Friday at approximately 10 o'clock, which was showing at that time there was clear parking availability and shows the slope upward from the site. Here is an example of some of the other bungalows excuse me, within the site. One of the issues raised was in respect to the design of the property, and I've provided some examples here of other properties within the wider area to show there is a mix of different styles and properties within the wider area, although some of these are quite close to the existing site. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Parish Councillor Tutt, are you there? Councillor Tutt, are you there? Okay, we'll try Councillor Sarah Mokes, are you there?
I am, yes, thank you.
Okay, you can start.
Okay, Bolton Parish Council strongly objects to this application, an opportunistic bit of garden grabbing by the diocese. National and local planning policy does not support such development. NPPF paragraph 72 recommends that plans set out policies to resist inappropriate development of residential gardens. Section 5.233 of the local plan says that, quote, whilst not precluding the appropriate development of such sites, proposals leading to a detrimental change in the character of existing neighbourhoods will not be permitted. According to the Conservation Area SPG, open spaces, gardens and gaps between existing buildings are often important elements of the overall character of a conservation area. Development that results in the loss or erosion of such spaces will not be permitted if it will be harmful to the character and appearance of a conservation area. This site is part within the conservation area, but entirely within its setting. According to policy DM33, development within, affecting the setting of or views into and out of a conservation area will preserve or enhance all features that contribute positively to the area's special character or appearance. The NPPF goes further. Paragraph 203 requires councils in determining applications affecting heritage assets to take into account the desirability of new development making a positive contribution to local character and distinctiveness, i.e. improve the status quo. The officer, by contrast, sets the bar much lower, concluding that the development would not have an unacceptable impact upon the conservation area and adjacent listed buildings, not the same thing. Arthur Kennedy Close and the Vicarage are 20th century developments that fail to respect their historic context. However, their construction predates the conservation area's designation in 1970 and that of the nearby listed buildings. No such excuse is available here. The houses look like something out of Metroland, crammed into a tiny plot. They bear no relation to the immediate or wider setting. For design reasons alone, it should be thrown out. It's ironic that the officer is claiming the scheme will enhance the street scene by virtue of its tree planting, when the applicants unlawfully felled the mature trees that previously existed, many of them within the conservation area boundary, as Google Earth testifies. In fact, there is a precedent for refusing this development. In 2020, Shepherd Neame unsuccessfully applied to build 2 3-bed houses on land to the rear of the Queen's Head car park. The officer found that, quote, the proposed development, by virtue of its location,
30
design
seconds.
and scale, would adversely affect the setting of the Boughton Street Conservation Area and the nearby listed building, which would cause considerable harm to the special character of the conservation area and to the special interest of the nearby listed building. If that scheme was judged harmful to the setting of the Queen's Head and the conservation area, how much more so is the present one, which will be visible both from the listed building and from the street. To approve the current application,
Thank you.
would therefore
That's
be...
it. Councillor Tuck, are you there? Mr. Burt, are you there? Okay, as nobody else is speaking, would you like to carry on, Councillor Mokes?
Oh, right. Yeah, I would also like to point out that I mean, this is a speculative development, so it's contrary to the local plan, and the houses being provided here are detached executive homes, a 3-bed and a 4-bed, whereas local need will be for bungalows for elderly people, starter homes for single people, I suspect these are going to they're certainly not going to be affordable. The diocese has recently divided up its garden at Bridge, and that house sold for £1.25 million. So the benefit of this application is it merely fills the coffers of the diocese. There is limited public benefit, and so I think that the harm to the conservation area and the listed buildings far outweighs any benefit. And as I said, it's contrary to policy, contrary to the council's previous decision, and more importantly, it sets a dangerous precedent whereby any large garden in the Boughton Street conservation area would be up for grabs. I would urge members to refuse the application.
Thank you. I'll move you off.
For information, Mr. Tutt has said in Teams, has commented, he said Teams won't let me in, but I can see him actually listed, so he's
right.
able to speak.
I'll move the officer's recommendation to you, Councillor Booth. And did you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just for clarity, was Councillor Sarah Mokes against this application?
I think so.
Yes,
yeah.
I was.
I think she was. Yeah. It was quite clear. Couple of questions, if I can, Chairman. There are a number of accusations there about it goes against policy. Can we have clarification from the officers that it actually adheres to policy? And can I have some detail on the SAMS payment, please? I think the officer said that has been received. Is that in its entirety? And how does that affect the application as it stands today?
So could you give us confirmation on that and clarify the position about alleged garden grabbing?
Sam's payment has been paid, so that has been resolved. Yes. And it, in my view, does meet required policy. ST3 allows for infill sites, which this would be. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gregory.
Yeah, is it relating to the garden grabbing specifically that you're looking for the policy sort of position?
Through you, Chair, if I may. Quite possibly, Mr. Gregory,
Okay.
yes.
Well, I think it's useful to just go through what the policy says, obviously. Yeah. So, effectively, paragraph 72, which was referred to by the parish councillor, says plans should consider the case for setting out policies to resist inappropriate development of residential gardens. For example, where development would cause harm to the area. So that's the national position. Local plan policy. So in ST, bear with me. I thought I had this up. Hang on.
Whilst Mr. Gregory's looking, Chairman, if I can, through you, I'm aware, as many members here tonight will be aware, of recent changes to the NPPF, which in certain situations does allow garden fill.
I'm ready.
Sorry, go on.
Mr. Gregory.
So in the supporting text to policy ST3, CP3, so it's specifically referenced here, and it says in suburban village and other sensitive locations, a lower density may be more suitable where the conservation and enhancement of the character of the site or its biodiversity or local context may be a priority. And then it says these considerations frequently arise in respect of proposals for development in the gaps between properties or in their gardens or as a result of the redevelopment of the entire site. This type of development has been emotively referred to as garden grabbing, and whilst not precluding the appropriate development of such sites, proposals leading to a detrimental change in the character of existing neighbourhoods will not be permitted. So there's not an embargo against it. And then in paragraph 7. Where are we? 7.15. Yeah. Sorry, 7.16 I think is the better one. Basically, when we've assessed the character and appearance of the area, what you've essentially got here is dwellings fronting the highway. So this garden, as it serves a dwelling on a corner plot, it will result in dwellings fronting the highway. So in terms of harm to the character and appearance of the area, we can't identify any, and therefore we don't think there's conflict with either the national or local policy.
Councillor Boot.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gregory. That's exactly the lines I was looking for, and I think to defend the officer's recommendation, to go down that train of thought will be extremely difficult to defend, should anybody wish to.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify. Funnily enough, I trimmed the tree in that garden, and there were a lot of trees in that garden, but I didn't cut the other ones down. I specifically left this one for wildlife, and I'm gobsmacked to see that they've gone and removed all the large trees, which is an indication that they thought, there'd be resistance to the planning if they were there. I'm amazed that a Christian group is looking at profiteering without thinking what the local people need. It's just mind-blowing, really. What should be there, I agree with Councillor, was it Noakes? That its bungalows and older people provision is seriously lacking in Bourton. So what they're looking at is getting the maximum profit from the smallest space, which I think sort of resembles the den of thieves scenario. It's not good. The orientation's bad, the design's bad, thermal massing's bad. Just it's a cheap, poor application in my eyes.
Thank you. I have to concur somewhat, but they seem very large buildings with a minimum gap between them, and it does feel a bit like overdevelopment of that site. If they'd gone for something smaller or something that was more respectful of the space, the actual two houses themselves doesn't seem a problem, but the size of them, it just seems excessive. Councillor Winkles.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, can the officer put up the photograph of the land again that we are talking about in relation to the vicarage? I can't quite know which way to go on this one at the moment. Thank you. Okay, that's quite a fair expanse of open green there. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, if there's nobody else, those in favour of the officers. We can't do it. Those we have had the debate now, so those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Abstentions? 1, 2. If that makes sense. Okay, so that has been carried. We'll now move on to item 3.1. 23/505/783/full Dickens Inn, Eastchurch. Going through the officer's report.
Thank you, Chair. Right, so there's no update on this application, so I'll just move on to a short presentation. So the application is at Dickens Inn on 4th Avenue in Eastchurch, which is a pub which currently has a flat above in the roof space. So, sorry, I'm just having some issues moving on. There we go. So there's a site location plan. The application seeks planning permission for the subdivision and extension of the existing first floor flat to create 2 residential units. It also proposes the demolition of the existing lean-to and pergola to the side and the erection of a single-storey side extension, which will provide a snack bar. So in terms of the site itself, there's an aerial image of it with the building denoted by this red marker. So it's on the corner of 4th Avenue and Warden Road with a car park to the front. It's surrounded by holiday accommodation to the north and west, with sporadic residential units across Warden Road to the south and east. The application site lies within the open countryside, so I've just included this just to show the distance to the nearest settlement, which is Eastchurch. So the site itself is up here on the right. Access via Warden Road down to Eastchurch to the southwest, and the site also lies within the designated holiday park area. So here's the existing and proposed block plans. So in terms of the built form, the footprint of the development is not increasing majorly. It's the side extension which will house the snack bar, which increases the footprint. Here's some existing elevations and the existing floor plans showing the pub on the ground floor and a flat above. Moving on to the proposed elevations. So this is the front elevation, the south, which shows a first floor extension to provide the additional flat. That includes dormer windows and a rear roof extension, which will provide an external staircase to provide access for each of the flats. And then on the ground floor is the side extension, which will house the snack bar, which, as shown on the floor plans, there's a seating area and kitchen. And then up above, we've got the 2 flats, a 1-bed unit and a 2-bed unit. Here's some site photos. So these are taken from the car park at the front. And ones of the rear and the side of the property. So on the side, you can see this is the sort of pergola lean-to extension that will be removed. And then finally some photos. This is taken, the one on the left, from 4th Avenue, looking towards Warden Road, and then finally from within the car park itself. So if I move on to summarise the committee report, our main concern with the application relates to the subdivision and extension of the existing flat to provide an additional residential unit. As mentioned previously, the site's in the countryside in an unsustainable location for new residential development. Future occupiers would be highly reliant on private vehicles, which is contrary to the general aims of our local plan policy CP2. The agent contends that the development is required in order for the applicant's grandchildren to live at the site, and they'll assist with the ongoing operation of the pub. However, this isn't considered to justify the need for an additional residential unit. It doesn't represent an appropriate exception until the general restriction on new dwellings in unsustainable locations, and on that basis, the recommendation is to refuse. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Mr. Bernard Trask here?
Yes, I'm here.
You have 3 minutes, sir.
Right. I am assuming that you have read the comprehensive planning report compiled by your planning department. Therefore, you will know I have planning for 4 holiday cottages in the adjacent field to the pub, which will be B&B accommodation, where building should start late 2024. My granddaughter and 1 other will deliver continental-style breakfast daily as required. The pub is a viable business. The adjacent wooden-built snack bar has traded for 10 years. I would like to upgrade with a brick-built extension to the pub, where the present snack bar is, to facilitate more food-led trade for the pub and also offer more selection and alternatives for the 4 cottages, as we are open 12 months of the year. I have owned the Dickens Inn for 37 years. In that time, I've had the flat roof renewed 3 times. I would like to put a matching pitched roof over the area, which, as your plan has measured, is 11 metres by 3.8 metres. As the building is of a chalet style, the living accommodation is in the roof space, and therefore this would make a sizable contribution to the overall internal space. As the internal walls in the existing living accommodation are partition walls, they could be reconfigured together with a solid wall to divide the new 1-bedroom flat. This would be done within the existing wall boundary of the existing building. We are in a rural location, fortunately for our trade, surrounded by approximately 1,100 holiday caravans, 150 asbestos-built chalets, and 65 brick-built bungalows. Therefore, each holiday property, where some owners live, as they are allowed to for the full 10 months, March to January, require a vehicle to access services. But only 5 to 6% approximately of that total need vehicles to access services in January and February, out of season. I have paid all the fees requested by Swale Borough Council, SAMS, etc., for the 4 cottages adjacent to the pub, so I feel that I can be trusted to pay the required fees for the proposal. My question is, will 1 car and 2 people over the age of 55 harm the sustainability and biodiversity of the local area? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll move the officer's report. Thank you, Councillor Booth. Just clarify, there's been recent development in the area of 4 cottages?
Yes, Chair. So on this, within the blue line edge here, you can see where my cursor is. The council has granted planning permission for holiday lets on that site. Obviously the site is, as I mentioned, within the holiday park area, so it was considered that it was a suitable use of that land to provide holiday lets. Obviously what's being proposed here is a permanent residential dwelling. It would be occupied throughout the year, you know, as a dwelling, which is a different situation in our view compared to the holiday lets that were approved.
Because for 2 months of the year they will have trouble finding food. Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you confirm if East Church Parish Council are represented here this evening?
We're not.
Right. This really aggs me, Chairman. Okay. This application was up for refusal by the officers. The only reason it is here is because East Church Parish Council support it. That's the only reason. It is now taken us close to 11 o'clock at night. That's the first point. Second point is, as was eloquently said, this is a permanent residence application. This is not holiday homes. This is not holiday lets, and it is within that catchment area. Eastchurch as a parish has always been very strong to defend its parish and its village envelope, and to build outside of that envelope and to extend and to request the kind of works that are being formatted here do contravene long-standing and existing policies. And Mr. Chairman, I don't want to wish further to extend this debate. I will support you in your proposal for refusal to uphold the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Agree, concur with what Councillor Booth just said, but point of information. With the snack bar, I'm probably wrong on this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I thought there would have been a requirement in terms for that, as it's a seated area, it's going to be a permanent sort of structure, so to speak. There was no toilet facilities included.
There's toilets in the pub.
Is that acceptable, though, in terms of actually walking out the snack bar to go around and join into the pub? That's I'll let you come back on that. My other concern, and I hear what the speaker said about the people likely to be living there in the cars, but that's only for a certain amount of time. We don't know what the future will hold and what the future demands would be in terms of those who may eventually live there. But I agree with Councillor Booth on everything else. Thank you.
Megan?
Thank you. Yes, so the snack bar will be run in conjunction with the pub. There is an actual internal door as well that will link through to the existing facilities that are provided within the pub itself. So I don't have any concerns about the snack bar not providing any toilets. Thank you.
Okay, I've got to admit, reading what Eastchurch Parish Council have said, given that it fits in with the policy on the extensions to existing public houses, what we're really talking about is an existing flat becoming two flats. I find it hard to say it's not sustainable given that people live there 10 months of the year, and well, it's a pub and a snack bar, that's food and drink. This is not like in the middle of nowhere unsustainable. This is in the middle of a massive holiday park. Well, maybe it's not massive, maybe it's little. A little holiday park. I just find that hard to say how that's unsustainable, really. And how we, obviously we feel we could defend it, but Councillor Martin.
I think I'm thinking along the same lines of you, Chair. Let's look at it in the other way. If you're going to run a snack bar in a public house that previously hasn't had such facilities, you're going to need a chef. Isn't it more unsustainable to have that chef commuting in by car 7 days a week than having them living above the pub where they could have their own separate flat? It seems to me that this is more about sustaining the rural economy and ensuring that we don't lose our historic public houses. I think Eastchurch Parish Council have hit the nail on the head in terms of actually there are times when you have an exemption. There are times when you look and go, actually the policy doesn't really work for what this is. And this is one of those times. If it was an agricultural dwelling in that sort of location to support a chicken farm, for example, perhaps we'd be having a different conversation. But it's very much in keeping with what's there. It's about making sure that the business can carry on and survive in the long term, and that supports Eastchurch as a location. So,
Councillor Martin beat me to it for a fair degree. If someone's going to be working there, the amount of journeys to and fro from where? It's not going to be just down the road, is it? Whereas, I don't know, you might leave once a week to have shopping, or you might have it delivered. It might make that pub and associated bits sustainable in order to have that little bit of expansion.
Councillor Palmer?
No, I think Councillor Martin's made some very good points. It's a rural business, and part of our policies are to support rural businesses, support pubs. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Councillor Martin. And I think I will be voting against the officer's recommendation on this one.
Okay. Can you speak into your mic in future? Councillor Jays.
Thank you, Chair. I'm struggling with this one, probably the toughest one for me of the night. I want to go with the policies, but I think this is quite a unique set of circumstances, as yourself and Councillor Martin have outlined, and I think I'll vote against the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Thompson.
No, I was just going to, yeah, thanks. I was just going to point out that you're not knowing that way, that when you say it's a small one, it's fairly big. It's got a perimeter of 2.6 kilometres. That's a fair amount of people to service, and I agree with Councillor Martin about if someone's going to be working there, it's much more environmentally friendly to be on site than to be travelling in and out. It's a fairly developed area. I do understand what Councillor Booth's saying about it's mainly holiday lets. We've got to make sure that that doesn't creep into allowing lots of permanent dwellings, but I think on this occasion it seems to be quite practical.
Obviously, I appreciate there's some weight being given to the connection between the business and the dwelling. The application's for a market housing unit, so there's no sort of at the moment restriction on. Obviously, it's not a restriction; it's a recommendation for refusal. But something to think about for members is perhaps a condition. If you're putting weight on that side of things in terms of how that deals with the sustainability issue, that you think about a condition which ties the occupants of the dwelling to the business use.
Councillor Jays.
Thank you. I just want to point out there's no resident objections to this, and the only people that have responded is the parish council, and they support it. And how many times do we sit here and have to go against the parish council and against the public? This one doesn't seem to have any public objection, and the parish council supports it.
I have trouble with the tying of the permission, because I don't really see the benefit of it. We've got, I think it would be, it's going to cause us problems in the future. What if a chef from somebody else wants to move there? Are we going to say it's got to stay empty because the chef lives in East Church? I just think I just don't think it is necessary. I think it'd be a bit challengeable, because you haven't got to say, oh, you've got to stay on site like you have with livestock to make sure they're safe overnight. Anyway, but it's been. Well, would anybody like to propose what Mr. Gregory said?
I think we need to wait to see if we go against the officer's recommendation first.
No, that'd be a condition.
I think we normally deal with conditions once we've proposed an approval, once we've gone against the
Okay.
recommendation.
Those in favour of the officer's recommendation to refuse? 1, 2, 3. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's clear. So, Councillor Jays.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose we approve this and delegate the conditions to the officers. We normally have a sort of standard set of conditions, and obviously the one linking it to use of the pub as well.
Yeah, Councillor Booth.
Yeah, sorry, Chairman, you can't just say we delegate that to the officers to make the decisions while we're approving it. You can't say that. Seriously, that's not what we've sat here for 25 minutes talking about.
No, can we extend standing orders for hopefully the last time, just to finish this? Yeah. Right. Okay. We've got to find a reason why we've approved this against officer's recommendation as well, and I would suggest that the reason is the fact it's in line with policy on extending a pub. Policy ST6 and DM3, supporting sustainable growth and expansion of business and enterprise in the rural area. I think that is the balance, and obviously officers need a reason why we've gone against their recommendation. So I would propose that as a reason for refusal. Now, approval. It is late. There's a proposed condition, but it be tied to the job, which is obviously got to be better worded. But yeah, that's it. As I say, I would struggle with that. I don't think it's necessary, and I think it will lead to problems in the future. I think the arguments that have been made is that it's sustainable and that it's a legitimate extension of the pub stand on their own merits. But those in favour of adding that condition, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 1, 2. What? Oh, I seconded it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, Chairman's casting vote. We won't include that condition then. Is that it? Sam's payment. So subject to the standard conditions and a Sam's payment. So, and the conditions delegated to officers in line with what we've discussed tonight. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Palmer, those in favour? Those against? 2, 3. That's carried. Thank you. Good night.